Welcome to Raging Bullets, a DC Comics fan podcast, episode 294. Welcome to Raging Bullets. I'm Sean Whalen, drnorge on the comic forums, and I'm joined as always by my co-host Jim. I don't understand what one line only means, so says the sensei of the Whatnot, Segulin, and the Duke of You Know.
How's it going, eh?
Actually, neither of us does, so.
Hey.
This is the first of a two-part segment where we're going to be taking a look at all 52 titles. We kind of did this in place of our Raging Oscars this year because of the fact that the line shifted halfway through the year. This is our kind of our placeholder. Instead of that, we're kind of doing a summary of our experience looking at what this whole launch was like now that we've explored all those books in depth. So we're going to do it over 2 episodes. We got the first 26 issues on this show and the last 26 issues on our next podcast. We actually managed to fit all that in. Plus, we also have some DC Comics news that we're chatting about, all the new stuff that was announced this week. Also, we're talking about some voicemails that you guys have called in with as well, which is always great. Remember, our show voicemail line is 1-440-388-4434 or drnorge on Skype, and that's available in our show notes and on our website, so it's real easy to grab those. You don't have to write that down at the moment. But we love having you a part of the show, whether you agree, disagree with us, whatever. Please call in. We love having you a part of the podcasts. We are proud members of the Comics Podcast Network and the League of Comic Book Podcasts. Sponsoring us this episode is DCBService.com and InStockTrades.com. Over at DCBService.com, I've got to shout this one out. It's a Vertigo title. And I don't know, I check out the Vertigo original hardcovers. I don't know how much you do, Jim. But this it's called Get Hero. It's Jiro hardcover. It's by Anthony Bourdain, the chef.
Really?
Yes. And it's co-written by Joel Rose. This stylized send-up of food, culture, and society features spectacular, detailed, and dynamic art by Langdon Foss. In a not-too-distant future of food-obsessed L.A., where master chefs rule the town like crime lords and people literally kill for a seat at the best restaurant, Hero, a renegade and ruthless sushi chef, arrives in town with strong ideas of his own. It's a bloody culinary war of epic proportions, and in the end, no chef may be left alive, including my tongue when I'm trying to say sushi. Regularly $24.99, 45% off, only $13.74. I check out the Vertigo hardcovers from time to time, and they're really top quality. We don't always have a chance to talk about them on the show, but I wanted to shout this one out because this is one I'm going to grab because it looks really weird and cool, and it's right in my wheelhouse. DC's original graphic novels, both from Vertigo and the DC line, have been really good. So it's strange. I don't know if that's in your wheelhouse, but it's definitely in mine because it just sounds strange and fun.
Yeah, you kind of had me at Anthony Bourdain.
So that's one that I'm going to pick up. Over at InStockTrades.com, episode 300, 301, and 302 are going to be Knightfall. The reason why it's going to be 3 episodes is there are 3 trades. We're going to be covering Batman Knightfall Part 1, The Broken Bat, which is $11.99. That's 40% off. Same thing with Batman Knightfall Part 2, Who Rules the Night. 40% off, only $10.79. And the last part, Batman Knightfall Part 3, Night's End, which is $11.99 at 40% off. That does skip the Night Quest stuff, which was in the middle, but it covers the entire Knightfall storyline and Night's End, which was the return of Bruce Wayne. So we're going to cover that big thing. Remember, we've got that movie coming up this summer, and the Batman movie pulls off of this. So we figured this was a great time as an anniversary show to cover something really large, and we're going to do it over 3 shows. At the end of the podcast, I'm going to give again specific details about our 300th episode 6-year anniversary contest, but I want to shout out one of our sponsors, DiscountPartySupplies.com. They're offering a special celebration package to our listeners, but definitely check them out. They have a number of great comic book related party supplies that are there. They're supplying the Green Lantern party package for this particular contest, but definitely check their website out and see if they have some supply needs for you. There's links right in the show notes and right on our website, so please click on them and check them out. DiscountPartySupplies.com. James, what kind of a podcast are we?
Raging Bullets is a spoiler show. We go in-depth in the plotline, story twists, and whatnot of the comics we're discussing on the show. So if you haven't read the book, you may want to come back later so you can better enjoy the show.
Gesundheit. Let's talk some comics.
Raging Blitz Podcast. You like comics, you like free, you like us.
Jim, I want to chat a little bit about some of the DC news this week. And I actually want to shout out a number of the people that participate in our Facebook group and forums and things like that, because, they post a lot of things during the week that they end up catching before I do. And one of the cool ones was Smallville being released as a season 11 comic book, kind of like what Dark Horse is doing with Buffy. We talked about this, and we're not the only ones, that this would be a great opportunity with a television show like Smallville that ran for 10 seasons to come up with a comic book that continues the adventures. How excited are you for this? I'm thrilled.
Dude, I am pumped about this, and the sneak peek of the cover looked kind of cool with with him in the outfit, and we're going to actually see that universe with him as Superman. And we got the glimpses at the finale, but now we're going to get the continued adventures. And they already said how people from the past will be coming back. There'll be new foes added to it. So this is definitely a neat thing.
I'm hoping with the fact that they're labeling it season 11 that they kind of set it up like the television show, where you've got the big opening and then a finale, if that makes sense, maybe even a cliffhanger. Mm-hmm. And, in between that there's story arcs that lead towards that conclusion, but then there's also one-shot issues, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
I liked the way the television series flowed. And I think there's some great opportunity to tell a whole bunch of stories along the way that lead to the logical conclusion of that season. And if it's successful, they can keep doing more seasons, like what Buffy's doing. Buffy's on they did season 8 in the comic book. Now they're on their season 9 comic book. And I think that's working real well. And I think the reason why I'm into that idea, if they go that route, is it'll separate it from the other comic books out there, the other Superman books that are currently being published. And I think there's something to that. I think it, offering a different story. That's going to separate that from the Earth 1 hardcovers. That's going to separate that from the current continuity books that are being published. So I don't know. I'm very into the whole thing. It's kind of cool for me. That's kind of my hope. But is that how you would like it to go, or do you have any preferences, or are you just kind of...
I think it's a natural, nice, organic flow through from what we started. The base and grounding is the TV show. So now let's take it on. They could either continue per seasons or just continue it ongoing. And just, you don't really, in my mindset, you don't need to block it off as seasons. Now, Buffy is kind of neat, and I give credit for that. That is, something kind of cool where you have the season 8 and season 9. But with Smallville, I don't really think they need to break down season. Just let it go. See where this develops and how it flows from here. We could actually see, in my mind, the Smallville version of Batman and Smallville version of Wonder Woman that was implied by Chloe in the season finale. Let's actually have those characters make their appearances. I think there's so much more they could do with this that I think this is a really cool possibility if the fans who were into Smallville have to continue supporting it and have to say, yes, let's keep this going.
See, the one thing, though, is nothing that I said there about having it in a season format discounts what you're saying. I agree with you. I'd love to see the characters that we couldn't see before start to make an appearance. I don't want them to overdo that. I think the key was the show did a nice balance of making sure it was about Clark and the traditional Smallville supporting cast and that world, while at the same time introducing heroes organically where it made sense, not making it all about that. I don't want every issue to be about a team up with a brand new superhero. I think, like, when they do Batman in it, it should be a big event.
Yeah.
Like, there should be a real reason to do Batman in Smallville. Otherwise, save that. Save it for when it's right. The reason why I'm saying the season aspect of it, I know you haven't read all of Buffy. One of the things that I liked about the season 8 aspect of it is there were many story arcs throughout the whole thing, but there was one big, massive story that it built to, long form, throughout the whole thing. I think that there's something to that. Smallville did that on the television series, and I think it's the reason why it did so well for 10 seasons. I think it was the anticipation of where is this going to end? How is this going to build? You know what I mean? You'd see something in the beginning that was hinted at, like Darkseid. Hinted at in the beginning, gradually paid off throughout the story arc. So then when, in the end, you finally get to see that battle, it means something. There's a point to that. I don't know, I'd like to see the comic have that same event throughout it. You know, not having to have a Smallville like mini series off to the side with this big, huge, massive event that's happening. The book, the main title, having that event happen in it. I think there's something to that. Buffy did it very well in the comic book, and it felt like a television show. I think for Smallville, it's really essential that this comic has the feel of the television show, because you are also appealing to that fan. I think this is a great transitional piece for fans who maybe don't read comics, who loved the Smallville. I've got a lot of friends of mine who loved Smallville, have never read a comic book. And I think this is one of those comics that if you give them something that has that feel of a television show, because I'm sorry, comic book issues, every issue feels like an episode, if done correctly by creators, and they do. So I think there's a natural transitional delivery there, and I think if you deliver a comic book that has appropriately that feel of what the TV show has, like, I mean, do I care if they follow that exact format? No. I just think it'd be cool. I think it would play off that way. That's one of my wishes. And it maybe doesn't have to be a full season like the television season. It can be longer. It can be shorter. Some kind of way of I think that big culminating event with a cliffhanger at the end, there's something to that. I remember anticipating the season when it kicked off because it ended so strong. And I think there's something to that in a comic book. I think this format naturally leads to that, where, you could put Smallville on its final issue of season number 11 and really have people build an anticipation to season 12, but also that season 12 becomes a new jumping on point. You know what I mean? So you've got this natural lead into, every season we've got a new jumping on point. It would trade well if you do that, which, you got to think of that format too. Also, this is a book that will do well digitally.
Yes.
I think if you market it right, there's sites like Krypton's site, devoted to Smallville, stuff like that have been around, and they're still in existence, giving news about Smallville. I think, you've got to make sure you're advertising on those sites, but also just mass media elsewhere other than where comic fans are looking, with direct links to a free first issue or something, some kind of link to something, or even a discount on the first issue maybe. Maybe that's what you need to get people hooked. A new audience, not us, a new audience. I think there's something to that. That's where I honestly think a Smallville comic is a great way digitally to bring in new people. That's what I want to see, new people. It's there for me. I'm already gonna pick it up. I'm on board. They don't need to sell me.
Yeah, and hopefully they're thinking outside the box. You got to think a little bit differently for this comic book, because it's funny, whenever at the cons, people will ask questions about the TV show or the movies, and their answer always is, hey, we're not, that's a different, the movies are a different section. We focus only on the comics. Well, now the comic book people are getting a television property, and I'm going to be really curious to see, one, how they handle it, how they approach it, but especially the marketing side of it, because you hit some very key points there. Comic book fans are pretty much already in. You got to get the people who aren't reading, the people who were fans of the TV show, or people who are fans of the early versions of the TV show that stepped away from it. Well, guess what? One of the reasons a lot of people stepped away was because they're like, enough about this. Let's put him in the costume. They wanted to see it, and they walked away. Well, now he is in the costume. Let's see how, if you can pull those people back as well. But it's going to come down to marketing. It's going to come down to advertisement. It's going to be, how are they pitching and plugging this, this comic book.
I've never been a fan of those answers, because in my opinion, if that's being brought up at a con, those are things that should be addressed. I've always been frustrated by those answers at cons when we get those.
Yeah.
And here's the reason why. First of all, how many comic book tie-ins have been published in the time that you've been reading? Since we've been doing it. I'm talking about, cartoon series, films, games, stuff like that. There's been a lot of that being published. I'm not saying the core universe has to adhere to films, and I don't want to see that. But I'm saying you can't ignore your fans that are watching your characters and connecting to your characters through other medium. I think those are opportunities that are being missed to bring in new readers, people who aren't reading comics. That's what I want to see tackled. And not everybody who doesn't read comics is going to start reading them. I'm not naive. I don't think that way. But I do think there's untapped audiences there. I think there's ways to reach them. And I think you have to think differently when you are addressing those people. You have to appeal to them in a different way. I think there's a missed opportunity there. And I think that that's something they've really got to learn to address. I think they are starting to. So I want to, on the good news of it, I think when we see things like this, I like this DC Nation block kicking off. You know, this Green Lantern and Young Justice on Cartoon Network, this block that they're going to be doing there. I think that's really cool. You're bundling these two shows together. They're going to have little animated things in between, you know, with the various DC characters. And it looks like they're going to periodically do some news and things like that, revolving around the comics, I hope, in there, if I'm reading this right and I've been looking at this right. I think it's just a great way to kind of bundle DC, and I think the new logos and that whole new theory, I'm excited about those. 'Cause, I mean, this isn't the first time I've seen a new logo from DC. You know, the original logo when I was a kid was this really big circle with the stars around it and the DC, and then that changed gradually to that more oval-shaped one that we're more used to now. But I mean, I've seen the DC logo change multiple times. And then there was more of an even classic logo that I remember getting from like flea markets and stuff like that. So it's not such a crazy thing for them to have a new logo. To me, the new branding, though, if you're going to do this, they got to keep being aggressive like they are right now, making high-profile announcements, trying new things to generate reader interest, to appeal to not just lapsed readers, because I think that's an important audience to target, and I'm glad they're doing that. But I think you also need to appeal to a newer audience, an audience that hasn't read before, and really trying to get books to them in a delivery method that fits. I'd like to see a lot more experimentation there. I think in the last year, a lot of, and this is one of the reasons why I think there's a point to doing this episode that we're doing today, I think there's been a lot done since this launch of the New 52 to try to appeal to a newer audience, an audience that hasn't been reading DC Comics in a long time. And that's a smart move because I think they're your first people to try and hook back in. And I think largely that's been successful. But I think that like they've just begun. I don't feel like you can look now and say, wow, they really did it, hooray, all that stuff. I think that's a long-term plan that needs to be put into place. You know, and I think that's something that over time you have to keep that momentum going. Because comic fans, I think, are fickle. I think no, and I mean that I'm saying that about myself as well. You know, I want to be excited all the time it's a serialized medium. I want to be excited, and you got to keep me excited. That's what keeps me coming back for more. So I'm not insulting anybody. I'm throwing myself into that mix as well. I think, you know, it's constantly what title's exciting me is dependent on the writer, the creative team, what they're doing, and what's exciting me, but also announcements. I think those announcements have to be strategic and important. I want to see new fans, though, and I still think that that's something that needs to be worked on. I think animated series bundling them together under a DC branding is a really important thing. I don't think that's been done before. I think the properties have been put out there, but I think they need to get the brand recognized and out there. Let people know that these characters are connected. They're part of the same world, the same universe. You know, I think it's important. I think the average person, when they go to a movie, I don't think if you talk to somebody, they would say, this is a DC character, this is a Marvel character. I think geeky fans like us know. I think the average person knows who Batman is. But, like, I don't think the average person knows that Batman and Spider-Man aren't part of the same world.
I guarantee the average person doesn't know that because, you know, I get weekly, you know, monthly or so, these questions from people about, you know, Iron Man, about the Avengers, about, you know, Spider-Man, and it just, I'm sitting there, I'm like, oh, that's the other universe, but yeah, it's pretty neat, and I'll talk a little bit about it, but, you know, it's usually, you know, I got to remind people, you know, DC, yeah, it's the Superman, Batman, you know, Wonder Woman universe. Oh, okay, yeah, Green Lantern. Oh, okay, yeah. Then a week later, they'll forget, you know, so it's, yeah, it's...
Marvel's doing a good job with that, though, exactly what you're saying. That's where, like, the Avengers, I think, is working, and one of the things that they're doing. So I'm glad DC's doing more of this branding. I'm sorry, please continue. I think that's something where it's a good distinction.
Well, actually, I was about to just continue on what you're saying there. It's, you know, I'd like to. I'm glad the fact that DC is stepping up to this. You know, we've seen it work on the Marvel side. You know, we've seen an Avengers movie that came from how many, you know, a couple other movies before that. You know, we have the X movies, the Wolverine movie that went off of the X movies. There's building of a universe. I wish we would have that on the DC side. I would love to see a Justice League movie, you know, because maybe that would be probably our best way to get Wonder Woman on the big screen, because for some reason, they don't trust her having her own live-action movie or her own live-action TV show. I'd like to see them try something like this where it would give us a chance to different characters who probably wouldn't get their own movie, gets them on the screen. Hopefully this is the beginning of something to come down the line.
I agree. I got a new game this week. It's Batman Gotham City Imposters. Well, it's actually Gotham City Imposters. It's not Batman Gotham City Imposters, but you can make your own, like, Batman. Remember that storyline where it was Batman versus the Jokers?
Yeah.
This is in a video game form. It's a downloadable game.
Oh, nice.
And it's available on the 360, the PlayStation 3, and the PC. So I got the PC version off of Steam. And it was like $14.99. I haven't had a chance to play it yet. So, I mean, I'll talk more about it later. The game I did get to play, though, I got it on my iPad. It's Batman Arkham City Lockdown. And it's kind of like a punch-em-up featuring Batman. The best way to describe it, it's kind of a tie-in game to the Batman Arkham City game. You know, the big version of the game.
Yeah.
The graphics are terrific. It's on the iOS devices, iPad, iPhone, iPod Touch. It's available from the App Store. The price was like, I want to say it was $4.99, but don't quote me on that. And then in-game, you can buy costumes for like 99 cents or stuff if you want to add them on. But you don't need to in order to play the game. You can play the game just as is. But you use the screen, and there's different combos and fighting moves you can do with Batman and gadgets and gizmos that you can use by doing screen swipes and stuff like that. So it really is more – it's not as free-form. It's not as – I mean, it really is a beat-em-up. It's kind of like
Cool.
It's kind of like Final Fight and Punch-Out. Remember those games?
Yeah.
Meets Batman. And I like it. But it has like Deathstroke, Solomon Grundy, Joker, Two-Face, all the players you would expect, and you get to fight them in this game. And then there is upgrading your character along the way. The different suits from the Batman universe you can play is the Earth 1 Batman, Batman Beyond Batman, Frank Miller's Dark Knight Batman. All the costumes actually for Batman that are available in the main game are available in this. It's a fun game. It's not the depth that you would expect from Arkham City, so don't. It really is a true beat-em-up in that sense. It's more like a boxing game than the Batman game that's on. But I definitely recommend it for people who are into trying. The price point's right at $4.99. I had a lot of fun with it. I was playing it during the Super Bowl. I was sitting there, like I'd pause it and watch part of the Super Bowl, and then every so often I'd like need a little break from doing that, so I'd be sitting there on the couch playing it. It was a fun game. It's really cool. My wife was watching it. The graphics are top notch. It is it's not as much depth, but it is. I wouldn't hesitate to recommend it. I don't know if anybody else has played any of these games, but if you have, let us know, because I think it's just tremendous. I think it's great to see those properties just being available on other devices and different delivery methods. I think it's just kind of cool. Have you seen the cover for Ravagers?
Yes. That has me, at first I was like, oh, okay, whatever. I wasn't thinking anything of it. And then I see the cover, and that's looking like Gen 13 to me.
Yeah, but with some of the established characters, but then some new characters as well. I like it. It's like that to me. That was seeing Caitlin Fairchild as the lead character right in the front. That has me really excited. The Ian Churchill cover looks really fantastic. I don't know. I'm into that book. That's one that the more and more I'm hearing about it, the more interesting it seems.
Yeah, I don't know where it's going to go with it, but it's right there. That cover image has me curious, and I think that's a good sign for a sneak peek to get you thinking, I wonder. I think I'm going to pick this up.
Now, I like this Earth 2 #1 variant cover. Now, it's the variant cover, which I wonder if there's a reason why the variant cover is being released versus the main cover. You know what I mean? Like, just to kind of get you thinking. Because the variant cover has Batman with what looks like he had some kind of weapon in one hand and then the baton weapon. Then looks like he had another one in the other hand that he just thrown. But then you've got Wonder Woman with her sword and then Superman with his outfit. But these are all from Earth 2. The costumes are different. Now, I can't help but speculate on that. Are these the Clark, Diana? Because Clark looks young. Wonder Woman looks young. Bruce looks relatively young. Are these those heroes from that world? Did something happen to these heroes? Meaning that they're on the cover, but like maybe they died or they didn't win or something like that. Because they could very well be main characters featured in this series. They could also be characters. I heard one of the guys on our Facebook page, I think, or it was on the forum, I don't remember which, made mention of the fact that thought that this might be the next generation of them, which could be cool too. I mean, there's all kinds of different options as far as who these characters are. I love the costumes on them, though. I think they're really cool.
Oh yeah, these look kind of neat. I like seeing the tweaking with it, and there's, in my mindset, there's no hesitation or issues with any changes because we're dealing with a different Earth. And
Right.
I actually like it for when a different Earth has a different look to it. And I tell you, for me, Wonder Woman looks really cool armored up like that. I especially do like how her one arm, which is like her shield arm, has the gauntlet on it, whereas the other one's got the sword and she's swinging and she's looking like she's kicking some serious butt there. So I'm looking forward to this. I want to see where this goes and how much of a teaser is this, or is this, is this a red herring? Is this something to throw us off? What is this? What is going on Earth 2?
Well, see, to me, Earth 2, if you're going to do this book, I don't care if you're completely rebooting the Earth 2 concept, but it's got to be about legacy. And that's, to me, the JSA book was always about that. So calling this Earth 2 is great. I'm all into that. That's cool. I'm awesome. With the creative teams you have on both this and World's Finest, you have a great opportunity to explore what distinguishes this world from our world and do it fresh and new and exciting and build something here. I want to see how this world has. It's got to be the JSA in this world. There's no way. I mean, if you don't have the JSA in this world, you've missed a huge opportunity. So this has got to be JSA here somehow. The role that these three play in the JSA is going to be interesting to me. Are they a part of the team? Were they the inspiration for the team? What does that look like? I don't know. Who are these people? Is the immediate, because you and I were talking about that. We were speculating about the book. Are they even going to be in it? And we could go one way or another.
Yeah, there's so many different things you can go with this, and the fact that they're releasing the variant cover makes me think that these three aren't going to be in the main book. I'm thinking these three are going to be the inspiration for who are the JSA. I'm thinking these three died in battle, and the other heroes have risen up after they've fallen. It's the only reason why I'm thinking that is because of this is the variant cover release. The real cover or the main cover will have the actual team members on it.
Or did they retire? There's that option too. Where this was them in their younger days being the inspiration for the heroes that we're seeing now. Maybe their comrades are still in place. Maybe Jay Garrick teamed up with them. Maybe, Alan Scott teamed up with them. I don't know. There's all kinds of options where you could go with this. I don't think there's one set possibility here. I'm thinking everything you say could potentially be true. There's all kinds of different options there. The fact that these three are in place, though, does show us this is a world that did either currently has or did have a Superman, Batman, and Wonder Woman.
Yes.
So that question's been answered. Which brings us to the cover for World's Finest #1. So I guess I didn't even think to myself that Power Girl would actually be the Supergirl from that world. We always knew that that's who the character was from Earth 2.
Right.
But, to have it done this way, and it would make sense why they would be adopting different identities. Coming to our world and recognizing that there is a Robin here, which it looks like Huntress was the current Robin of Earth 2, from that R on there. And, that's the current Supergirl. So having these two come over here, it makes sense why they would have their identities, recognizing there's a Supergirl here. There is a Robin here. We have to adopt new identities. Now, the question that's been on both of our minds, where did the Huntress story take place in the miniseries? Did it take place in our world? Did it take place in their world? I guess our world, because I'm with you. The costume's the same. This has got to be our Huntress.
Yeah, I'm thinking the Huntress miniseries took place on our world, and it's the Earth 2 Robin came over and became our world's Huntress. And I'm also thinking that the Karen Starr that we saw in Mr. Terrific is this person right in front of us. And the reason she didn't act like Power Girl, or she kept her secret identity, is she's trying to figure out what's going on. She's trying to figure out how to get back home, and she's trying to keep a low profile. And for whatever reason, she's going to make her presence known as Power Girl here. And this is going through my head. Granted, I could be completely wrong, and if I'm wrong, cool. But it's this, to me, looking at that costume, that looks like Huntress. And if the Huntress miniseries took place on our Earth, which I think it did, this would make sense to me that this is how things are playing out.
Yeah, I don't know. I think everything you said is very possible. I don't know. I don't know if that is the same Karen Starr, if it's a different one. Because there's also the possibility that there are two Karen Starrs then.
Yes. There's definitely that possibility as well, but for some reason I don't think they're going to do that. But I don't know. It's interesting. Again, I go back to how they answered questions at Con, and they kept asking about Karen Starr. I'm like, well, Karen Starr will be in Mr. Terrific. They never said Power Girl, and even when someone brought it up, they're like, hey, we said Karen Starr will be in Mr. Terrific, and they were very blunt and very open that it's there's and it could again be a tease or misdirection on their part to not getting us thinking this way. I don't know. I personally am really excited to see what happens here, and I like the costume differences. Huntress is pretty much very consistent with what we're used to, but they really changed Power Girl's costume, and I really like this new costume. This is a nice look for her. I hope to God they keep this and they don't change it.
As far as change it to what? Back to the traditional?
Yeah, more like the traditional. I hope this is what they go with and this is where they stay. And I like this look.
Yeah, I don't... to me it's close enough to the original that I'm fine with it. And it's a nice nod back to her Supergirl origins. See, I guess to me, the funny part you were saying that I don't think they'd give us two Karen Starrs. They are giving us two Supergirls. So I guess all bets are off having two of people.
Well, true.
Because this gives us two Batmans, this gives us two Supermans, this gives us two Supergirls. Because she is Supergirl coming here.
Right.
So she's changing the identity. And here's the question. What is her real name? Like, is her real name Karen Starr? I mean, those are questions we're going to have answered initially too. Or is that an alias that's been developed, and where did that come from? So I don't know. There's a lot of unanswered questions. I agree. First of all, I agree 100% with what you're saying. There's a possibility the woman that's in Mr. Terrific is already the same Power Girl. Is this girl? I agree with you. That's definitely an option that's on the table. So I'm not against that. I'm saying I like that there's more than one possibility of what's going on here because it adds to the mystery. And I think there is a mystery here. I think they're deliberately playing it close to the vest. I believe that Karen Starr could either be, in fact, who she is, or that could be misdirection. And I love that. That's how you build anticipation. You throw out multiple possibilities, you leave them out there. All of them could be true. Let's just see what it is. Did we ever talk on the show about the new logo? I think I asked you if you've seen it, but I don't remember if we talked about it and your thoughts on it. This new DC, like the peeled D over the C. Do you like that logo? What are you feeling about that?
I like the old one better, but I'm not going to... It's not to the point where I'm like, oh, this is terrible. I don't think any negativity of it. I don't know. I like the the older, more the traditional with the D with the swoop around and just, I don't know. See, in my opinion, they changed something they didn't need to change.
So you've never been through a logo change with them?
No.
That's the funny part. Because, I went from, the logo you're used to, it used to be like a big circle with the stars around it, which I'm sure you've seen now in comics.
Oh, yeah,
I know you've gotten back issues with that. But that was the logo. Then they switched it to that oval one. So for years, that oval one didn't exist. It's funny. At first, when I saw the logo, I was kind of like, really? Because it really is drastically different than any other logo they've done previously. But I get the idea on what they're doing. They're going for a modern branding, more of in the digital age. A branding that would look cool when they do, there's a chance to peel off that logo. And I've seen a lot of the logos where if you peel it off, behind it there's some kind of animated image or something like that of various other characters. I think that's going to look really good in motion with film, television, things like that. I think that's where the branding, that is going to work. It's going to be a cool digital image for that purpose. On the comic end, I think it looks good. I don't know I'm kind of with you on the comic end. I don't really need to be changed there, but I think you need to, for consistency purposes, have the same logo because you're trying to attach these brands together now, which to me I think is something they need to do. I'm glad to see more focus on how do we interconnect our properties together. I think that's something that can be improved on and I think for comics in and of itself, but the games, the television, all that stuff needs to be in film. That all needs to be branded together so people, who are looking for swag know where to look. And there's a logo and an identity that they recognize. And I think that's what they're trying to do. How successful that all is going to be depends on where they go from here. Marketing is the big key. And I'm going to be curious to see how they market all of this stuff going forward. I think Marvel's done a really good job, but even on Marvel's end, I'm going to say I think they can take it even a step up. You know, as far as marketing, I think the comics are an area that seems to get left out of the loop. And I think there's more of that that's happening. We're seeing more comic articles appearing in newspapers and on television and on social media sites and things like that, tied in with the other properties. I want to see more of that. I think there's more opportunity. I think it's really important that the big two are doing this. You know, I mean, getting those things out, because I think it's harder for your smaller publishers to do that because, you know, that costs money. But I think that the big two have an opportunity to really punch a hole back into the digital age. I think it goes back to digital comics. I think they need to, over the next 5 years or so, really come up with a strong digital plan. And I don't think any of them have figured out how to use digital yet. And I'm not saying I have the answers for that. I don't. But I think digital needs to be looked at differently than the paper comics. I think digital needs to be catered to a different crowd. And I don't think that's being done yet. And I think that's an area where I think there's an opportunity to punch through to a new audience where it could become the newsstand. And I think that's where you protect your comic book retailers. I think the comic book retailers need to continue to be what they are, a niche audience, a niche crowd, a special crowd. And I think comics need to develop a newsstand of sorts again. You know what I mean? A mass market.
Yeah.
And I think that needs to be separate than the comic book retailers. That needs to be that special experience that it's always been. I think that's what's going to be good for comic book retailers. They continue to be a special experience, a collector's experience, a niche experience. And you create a more of a mass market newsstand audience outside of that, of people that could potentially stop into a comic shop, you know, that aren't now. Those you got to target in your moving forward. And I want to see that over the next 5 years. I'm not saying I have the answers. I think that there are some people, though. I think there's a younger crowd right now who's very into social networking and digital media and connecting with a digital age audience that are the people that really should be spearheading that. You know, some of these people who, you know, come up with Twitter trends and things like that. You know, that audience, there's a young audience in there that they really need to kind of sit there and say, how do we get people buzzing about this stuff in a way that they aren't now? Mm-hmm. Mass market. And that's what I want to see moving forward. I think that's why I get excited for this DC Nation block, this cartoon block. I just think it's, you know, one more thing where they're just getting the properties out there in the public. The video games, I'm glad to see them on all platforms, including your portable platforms. I'm glad they're experimenting with downloadable games as well as full-blown games. I want to play this Gotham City Imposters. I hope it's good because, you know, to me, a downloadable game like that, we can't afford any duds.
Yeah.
You know, like this Batman game, it's not Arkham City. So please, anybody listen to that. But it is a fun beat 'em up, and it's good to see more, you know, exposure for Batman. I mean, it's Batman. Batman's one of the most recognizable characters in all of media, and you should have plenty of Batman content on any device. I just think it's something that's important. Visibility of these characters nowadays more than ever. I think you'll agree with me on this. Visibility for your properties is critical. Buzz for your properties is critical because people have so much instant access to everything that you need to make sure that content keeps on coming across all medium. I don't know. It's kind of a fun time.
Spinning with great speed, the Flash creates a protective vacuum around himself.
It was funny, Jim, when you and I look at every year we do like a Raging Oscars type of thing. We started that years ago, and that was actually from a friend of the show, David Wallace, who came up with that idea. And for this year, just because of all the changes that happened midway through the year, it just didn't feel right this year to do a Raging Oscars in that format. This year, this is in place of that. For the first time since we started the show, you and I have gone through every single title that DC's publishing. All the main monthly titles, I should say, from their DC Universe line, all 52 of them. We haven't done that since we started the program. We've usually picked every month just books that we've been interested in talk about. Occasionally we'll pick, you know, a book here and there that we haven't talked about in a while, but we haven't done the whole line like this. So it felt more appropriate to do kind of a summary of our exploration of the New 52, which is what this DCU two-parter in one line only thing was. As we've been developing this, though, you and I were talking along the way, and it's like, how can we do one line only and not have reactions to it? Because that, to me, that's half the fun. It's not just the lines that you and I each came up with, but it's how you and I react to what each other's saying. Plus, it's kind of a summary of where these titles are at now and how we feel about them, which is kind of interesting as well. A chance to kind of close off this whole discussion, because some of these books we haven't talked about in months. So it'll be fun to kind of look at everything in 2 episodes and kind of sum this whole experience up. Did you have a lot of trouble coming up with one line for some of these books?
Well, here's the interesting evolution of this for me.
Okay.
Me being me, I'm not going to do it exactly how we said to do it because, hey, that'd be boring and expected. So what I started doing was...
No, wait a minute, hold on 1 second. You doing it like we said we were going to do it would be out of character and interesting because you never do that. Exactly. So I figured I'd try something a little different, and I will admit my idea failed miserably. What was your idea?
I was going to do it in lines from songs.
Oh, good
One
Lord.
song per each title. The song that, best, was a explanation of that character and or title for me. And one, coming up with 52 songs was becoming very difficult. I was coming up with some really garbage. And 2, the length of time to do this, do the line of the song and then explain why that line fit would have made this a multi, beyond even 2 recordings. It would have been really long. So I'm like, I got to drop that. So there's a couple in here, a couple songs I have that really I think fit that you're still going to get. But that's how I initially started this whole thing, was going with that project. And a couple other failed ideas was colors. Mm-hmm. Again, I was going to do a color and say, you throw out a title and I'd say magenta. And then I'd explain why magenta fits this title. And that also... I'm not that creative of a person to pull that off. And I was like, then when I got to the greens, I was like, ooh, this is going to be tough. Okay, this one's forest green, and this is emerald, and oh crud. I was running out of ideas quickly on that. So I had a couple variations, and then I tried to do just one quick one-liners, and I never could just stop. I always kept writing, because it was either just an explanation of what I meant, or I would get diarrhea of the mouth and just keep going. And then I'm like, oh yeah, this is only supposed to be one line. So I have like an evolution, a combination of all of those things. Some of them I have just a one quick liner. Other ones I have a lengthy diatribe, and I got a couple lyrics out there that I think fit really well.
How many pages were your notes?
The current version is down to 7.
Okay.
At most, I had it in the 20s, but that was when I had lengthy song lyrics and explanations, and so I've been able to hack down.
Now, is that for all 52 books you were in the 20s?
Yes.
For 26 books, because I divided into halves after you and I discussed today, so I took the second half and set it aside so that way to remember for next week that this is my batch, that I'm doing for them. For the first 26 books, I have 19 pages. Kid you not. This was my dumb idea. One line only. I wound up with 19 pages for the first half of the 52.
Well, between the two of us, I really followed it more than you. All right.
Well, no, wait, hold on 1 second. I do have for every single title one line. I stuck to it.
Oh, okay.
But you and I then said, let's make sure we discuss the titles afterwards. We can use this to branch off into an interesting discussion about them, which I do think is a point to that. I don't want to just do one line. I mean, I think doing the one line thing is cool to see if we could actually sum up the book, our feelings about the book in one line. But you and I are going to want to have discussions about the books and the characters and things after that. So I started taking notes about each book along the way of things I might want to mention. So we might not even get to everything that I said here, but I ended up writing 19 pages of notes. There's something wrong with me.
Yes, there is something seriously wrong with you.
So, and wait, the part 2, I guarantee you I'm going to make adjustments to it. It'll probably wind up being longer next week. I won't use all the notes because that's really the one line thing is I do have one line for each book. I did stick to that just because I wanted to see if I could, and I did wind up doing it in interesting ways. Let's start with Justice League number 7. right, what was your line? Go ahead.
Start me up and never stop.
Oh, jeez.
Rolling Stones.
Isn't it if you start me? Isn't it if you start me up?
What?
Isn't it if you start me up?
Probably. I don't know.
I love that you didn't even check the lyrics of the song you used. Because I'm a big Stones fan. I'm like, that's not how it goes.
Hey, that's how it goes in my head, okay?
I love that your first one, the lyrics are wrong. That's great. All right, here's mine.
Well, hold on. I'm not done yet.
Oh, there's more to that? Okay, go.
Reason I went with Start Me Up is, one, because it was great that that's what they used to kick off the 52 and that they announced it. And we're going back to the first meetings of them. It was just a beginning and an excitement. And it's an excitement for me that's carried through. And part of the reason I did pick that Stone song was because of the guitar riff, and just because of that. It's always a high energy, pumped up song. And you hear it and you get going and you get jazz. Granted, my version, it was absolutely terrible. And, I've offended Stones fans for generations to come. But hey, just wait till down the line. I got a couple more that'll really anger people. But there is that energy, there is that excitement, and that's what I get from the Justice League. For me, this book has been something I'm like, oof, just really out the gate, hit you hard. I was really digging this.
And you know what? Let me take the joking out of it for a second. That actually is a very appropriate song to pick for this particular book, because this is a team that will constantly be reimagined and revitalized throughout its history, because the concept is so good. So you actually picked a really good song.
Sing for crap.
But that's part of the fun. Now, mine was from issue 1. It reminded us that the Justice League is at its core the most awe-inspiring collection of true heroes in comics. And my thinking was, you got Aquaman, Wonder Woman, Green Lantern, Superman, Flash, Cyborg. It's not about being perfect all the time. It's about learning the value of each hero to a team dynamic. In spite of cultural and background differences, these are heroes who are better when they work together. They are all the best of their world, of their location, and it is their differences when they come together that they have to work through somehow to make themselves something better. They each grab things from each other. You hear all the time these heroes reference something that they pulled from, like Superman, something he pulled from Batman, something he pulled from Superman, Wonder Woman, something she got from Aquaman. I think it's important these heroes reference each other in their own titles when they're not together, because they've learned something from each other. I love seeing in Batman the Dark Knight right now that Batman has communication with these guys, and that they will send him intel. He gives them intel. They use each other as a support piece. These are people that have gradually become comrades at arms. They become friends, and they recognize the value of each other. I think that's something about this team. These should be, and they should feel like the best of the best in the universe. This book delivered that. I also want to say on the side, I loved the fact that they did this as a midnight launch. I would love to see this Before Watchmen thing's coming up. I hope they do that with Before Watchmen. And I hope that they find other opportunities to do that. I think that there's something neat about going to a comic shop for something special like that. I applaud the retailers that did this, because I think this is something that it works in film for me. I went to the midnight showing of Star Wars Episode 1. And the main reason why I went, is it the best of the Star Wars movies? No. I like the movie. There's a lot I like in it. I love the Darth Maul sequences and stuff like that. I think, as a prologue chapter of Star Wars, it's cool. But the whole reason why I went, it was just to do it. There's something cool about that. It was a 3D movie. It was cool to see Star Wars in that format. To kind of be there with a group of people who obviously are, equally mentally messed up, that we're going to go at midnight to see this film. But there's something to that. That's part of the geek culture. It's these special moments where you're doing something not everybody's going to. You know what I mean? And I like going to that midnight thing I knew I was getting the book digitally when, it was first being released. I didn't need to go to the midnight opening. I did, though. I went there, and it was cool. I walked out with a statue. I ended up buying the book in paper anyway. It was cool to be a part of that. And I think it's good for comic shops. I ended up buying swag that I probably wouldn't have bought otherwise. I think that's neat. I want to see more of that. We do our mail order through dcbservice.com, so it was a great chance to get me into a comic shop. And I would gladly do it again for any other midnight event that they do, because I think that's neat. I think it's a great way to go into retailers. So I hope that they do more stuff like that. I think it's a good way to support the comic book retailing market. I think it's neat. So, I don't know. That's kind of a little side note. I know it has nothing to do with the one-line thing, but I don't know. It's just something about the experience. I think part of the New 52 to launch it that way was cool.
Justice League International. I tell you, I really wanted this to be Generation Lost, or maybe the old JLI coming back, or even find out, is this the booster?
What was your line?
What?
You didn't do your line.
Well, I don't have a song for every single one of them.
No, but didn't you do any kind of like line or one line only?
I'm doing the line right now.
Oh my God, this is like a paragraph. Go ahead.
Hold on, I'm doing the line now.
That's your line? That's your line?
I'm not done yet. Hold on.
Go for it. All right. You know what? I apologize. Go ahead. Oh, I find this fascinating. Go ahead.
Now I'm laughing. Hold on.
Oh my God, this was funny. I'm like, oh my God, he's going on like he forgot to do his line.
No, that's
really funny.
Yeah, I really wanted this to be the Generation Lost, or the old JLI coming back, or even maybe Booster Gold, the hero no one knows about. But in the end, none of that really matters to me. I am excited about this team. I am excited about this quirky dynamic that, with all the cool swerves that are coming out, this is becoming a really groovy book. This is something I am excited about, not for the past, but for the present and the future.
That was one line?
I told you I had a way of doing it.
That might be like the biggest run-on sentence ever.
Hey, you know what? It looks fine to me. So,
wait, this is funny. Wait till you hear mine. Booster Gold needs a solo series. That's my line.
Yours is a gooder line than mine. I'll give you that.
I love this team, but I also love the nice balance of focus. Batman's a member of the team, but it isn't all about him. This is important on a team book. It's a nice look at Fire and Ice. I love the Rocket Red and August General and Iron's interplay. They're natural rivals due to, trying to show their superiority of their individual countries. But then they gradually earn this respect through bravery and valor. Lady Godiva learning to step up in the heat of the battle versus being all about personal advancement. Guy Gardner. It's a great book so far. But that was the line. What I did with my lines, I was really thinking, what was the first thing that comes to mind when I think of that book? And that's not an insult to Justice League International. It's the commentary on just really how Dan Jurgens has really kept Booster Gold going. I think he's done a great job in the Booster Gold solo series, and here he did a great job. This character is a headliner in this book. I love him being the team leader. Booster Gold needs a solo series is certainly what I'm thinking out of this. I'm not saying in place of Justice League International. I would love to see one in addition, because I think he's an interesting character, and I want to see more from him. Aquaman?
Yeah.
So go for it. What do you got for Aquaman?
Okay. Well, the King of Atlantis is a really cool hero, but a really great guy, is my one line. And just playing off of that, for me, Aquaman was a character that I didn't know a lot about. I never had any lengthy dealings or emotional attachment to him. And these issues have really just shown a nobility, but it's shown the level of hero. It showed the professionalism. It showed this great guy who's dealing with, some bad PR because everyone thinks, it's Aquaman. But in reality, he's really powerful and he could do some serious damage if he chose to do that. But he walks a better path. He walks an honorable path. And it's, this is a character that this title is something that's flown up this chart for me, and I think this is an outstanding book.
Aquaman is just wicked cool, enough said. I mean, that was the first thing that came to mind. But seriously, month in, month out. And it's funny how close you and I were on our thinking on this one. I think that says a lot about the book. We are seeing tremendous development of a man influenced by his rich past, trying to find where he belongs, and to solve various mysteries of Atlantis. I love the commentary on how he's always been viewed by the general public as a joke, but proving he is the man with every action. This is on my short stack of being one of the very best of the New 52 titles. There's something about this book. It feels like AAA list, whatever you want to call it. It's up there in that category for me. If I had to chop down, this one would be one of those ones that I'd be looking at. If I have to go to, just a handful of titles, Aquaman's going to be in that batch.
Yeah.
There's hands down, it's just something special about this book, and I love that it feels that way. Jim, which book next?
Wonder Woman. Wonder Woman. Da, 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 da. It's funny. It's weird because the excitement that I got as a kid from the Wonder Woman TV show, I really did enjoy that. I thought it was kind of neat, and I was laughing and joking. I always, it was a fun TV show, and then we had the past generations of, the different iterations and incarnations of Wonder Woman that I've read. I always had this kind of style that I really started liking. And the version we currently have is a really cool Amazon warrior. And we do see a level of compassion in Diana, but this is definitely somebody different than what I'm used to. And it was kind of a system shock. It was a combination of, what's this? But this is still a cool story. So there's so much, but it's coming in with a lot of potential growth for her. And I'm looking forward to see if that stuff happens down the line. If we do get that more compassionate leader, that inspirational figure who inspires people to do great things. I want to see where Wonder Woman's going to go with. Until then, we're getting a cool warrior story, and I'm really happy with that. But I want to see more out of it. I want to see the development of Wonder Woman go beyond the sword.
If you understand the balance between the warrior and the woman, Wonder Woman is one of the coolest characters in comics. This title stands out for me from that. See, it's funny, I'm getting the woman part in it too, especially with the fact that we're dealing with her mother, the background there, siblings, even siblings she didn't know about. This girl they've been running with her has become kind of supporting cast. Plus, we've got, the various different gods appearing in different formats. Some of them are friends of hers. Some of them are foes. Some of them are fall in the middle. And I really like that. I think really the importance of Wonder Woman is understanding all of her world. Her interaction with the people of Earth, her interaction with the gods. That's what Diana's all about. There is the warrior, but there's also the woman. You have to have that balance. And I'm getting that in this book so far. They've kept that balance. I think sometimes when writers lose their way and they don't have both, that's where Wonder Woman's lost it for me. But I gotta say, in its rich history, I think a lot of people haven't given Wonder Woman a fair enough shot. It's had a lot of tremendous runs throughout its history. And this is a character that if you haven't given Wonder Woman a try, you really need to, because there's an accessibility point of jumping on this book now, especially if you're worried about long runs and having to go over that. It's only, 5 issues in now so far. Good opportunity to jump on this book and give it a try. Brian Azzarello gets it. I mean, this is exactly what the character's all about. It hits on everything that I enjoy about the character from previous runs that I've really dug. And I do think it's an accessible character. It's a kick-butt superhero comic. But there is the woman. You've got her in there, and she's not lost. And that's really important because I like Diana. Not just Wonder Woman, I like Diana. And there is a duality there. It is that person, and even with the new things that they put in, they're taking out it looks like they're taking out the Gumby thing, which I like the whole being created by clay thing. Here's the funny part though, they've played that game, yet I am not entirely sure that I would believe the new stuff that's been introduced with her. Is she a child of Zeus or not? I don't know, and I love that you don't trust everything the gods throw at you. You know what I mean? I do think that I do think they are adding that as part of this mythos, but I could see it very easily being revealed that they were just toying with her as well. This could be something where somebody's playing a game at her expense.
It definitely could be. When Zeus makes appearance again, that'll be the big indicator. What's going on and what is going to happen, and what's the truth. And I think that is adding to the element of it is a Wonder Woman versus the gods story, but there are little twists to it and little tweaks to it. So it's a cool story.
Yeah. Now, The Flash is our next book that we're going to continue. So go ahead. What's your line for The Flash? Oh my gosh.
I've never gotten to really read a young Barry Allen or a young Wally West just getting used to their powers. As I said, Bart's my Flash. So to see a young Barry who's getting used to the powers, who's working out the kinks, who's figuring out what he can do, this is something the reboot has really given me, and I'm really grateful for, because it's something that I never had. I got to understand who the Flash was. I'm like, yeah, he's a cool hero, but seeing this growth of him, seeing this understanding of him is really kind of had a stronger connection to me, and I'm glad I'm getting this opportunity.
It's funny. This is the first time I've had Twitter running when you and I are recording. I don't normally do this because I'm usually heavily focused on what we're doing, which I am right now. But I left it open just to kind of see if anybody was on while you and I were chatting. And Matt just tweeted, he goes, is there a lot of what the heck does that mean going on? Because I tweeted that we're recording this right now. And when you were doing that, zing, 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 I'm like sitting here, this is exactly what I'm thinking right now. What the heck does that mean? Like the timing could not have been better. Here's mine. The Flash is a beautiful mix of art and story that reminds us that the best stories in The Flash are filled with a very fun sense of adventure, amazing visual style, and true superhero morality. The fun part is drastically important to me in this, Jim. This book is fun again. You know, and I think it's something with Barry when he was returned. It's the one thing I've been missing. I think, you know, he was sowed, and I'm not saying that it was a bad move to do, because with the way Barry came back and how much life has changed around his world and the amount of time, I think you have to address the fact that there would be an emotional experience happening to Barry because of that. This book being relaunched, though, I think was relaunched at the right time. Barry had been through so much. He's been de-aged. He's youthful again. He's fun. He's exciting. It's kind of like a hybrid of what's cool about Barry Allen and what was always cool about Wally. Mm-hmm. He's fun. I want to be the Flash. Like, I want to hang with him. I want to follow him. Visually, this book is exciting. I love the way that the art is using the panels and that you never know what's going to happen next. And I don't know, the storylines are great. I love the police detective story aspect of it. The powers look cool. I love the way the whole Flash costume works now, that visual change. It's a slight tweak, very true to the whole popping out of the ring thing, but they made the popping out of the ring thing look very trendy and cool again, the way it kind of morphs onto his body. I don't know, it's everything. It added this sense of like wow and fun right back into the Flash. And Flash to me has always been in its best. Why do I always refer back to the Mark Waid run and then followed by the Jeff Johns run? The Waid run, when it was the first time that I followed Flash monthly. I subscribed to it. And it was one of those books I got in the mail. I could not wait to read the issue because it was always fun. The Flash was one of those vibrant, fun, you know, especially when you go from like a Batman to the Flash, there's a definite distinction between the two. I can totally see why these two would be friends on the Justice League because of the police detective work and things like that. They would have a lot to connect over. But the other thing is, I think Barry's a guy that brings Batman up because he is like inspirational and uplifting, and there's something about him that's cool, and they've really captured that and modernized it for today in this book. This book really is I think a full relaunch of the Flash concept in a way that I think is very satisfying. I don't know if you feel the differences between this title and what's been done previously with them, but for me, this is exactly what I want from the Flash.
Yeah, it's funny because I don't have a strong connection to the past, so it's you know, it's stuff I've gone back through and we've done through the show, and that's where my connection to the past is. But when I'm reading this, I get that feeling that this is classic Flash moment. And when you're new to a story and you can tell this is part of who the core of the character is, that's one really good writing and a really good story, and it's an understanding of the creative team.
Okay, next book, buddy.
Captain Atom. You know what? I had no idea what they were going to do with this book, but I was in just because of the creative team, and I am so glad. This is a visual treat plus a really cool story, and while I still don't know exactly where they're going to go with it, that's okay, because I am enjoying the ride.
This one for me, I had to think about, like, when I think of Captain Atom, what's the first thing I think of? Godlike power to do almost anything you can imagine can make you question how far you can and should go on a deep level. I love this book and the cast. We all imagine what it would be like to have the power of a god. The question is, morally, how far should you go? Just because you can do, should you? Where do you start and where do you stop? These are things that, just a lot of what I think about on there, but it really is that it's a deep level, I think, all the way through. I think the cast is incredibly well developed. The art style is great. I really love that the art has been really, and I think this is something we're seeing with a lot of these new 52 books that I'm really enjoying the most. The art teams have really been given a lot of opportunity to customize their style to the characters, to the book, to the environment, to the world that they're crafting. I think there's a strength to that. And Captain Atom really has benefited from that. I think Freddie Williams has done a great job of just kicking up his art style in a way that he amazes me with his ability to show variety in what he does. And I don't know, this book just is another one of his. I've always liked his art. Since Robin, that's when we were just singing his praises because of what he did with that character. And I think, we saw it with the Flash, his growth there, and then here, it just is showing that he's not a one-trick pony. I really like this book a lot. It's one that I'm hoping for people isn't getting lost in the shuffle, because I'm with you. He's an unusual character. I didn't think I'd be this into a Captain Atom book. I am. Yeah. And it really is Nathaniel Atom I'm into. I want to see more for this guy. I love the teases along the way of who he is. And what happened to him and what's going on with his powers and the numbers counting down and going up and all that. I don't know. I just think that's something that it's another one with a great mystery to it that's unique to Captain Atom. And it's been an interesting, fun book. The Fury of Firestorm, the Nuclear Men. What do you got for this one?
Well, I say they are the raging bullets of the DC universe. Two people who are really fundamentally different people who come together to create something that is awesome. And, there's a fury, there's an uncontrolled rage sometimes, there's an unpredictability of what's going to happen with the potential of destroying the entire universe, all between these two people. And I think that, right there is a great description of us as well.
Yeah, we destroy the universe. I'd just be honest with you on that end. What did you give those guys powers for?
So, another funny, on a serious side, this book has me very passionate about them in the very few issues. And I'm actually seeking out past Firestorm stories because of what's going on now. I'm like, I got to read more. I want to see what's going on in the past. And I think that is a definite, strong statement that I'm going outside of. I'm going to another universe, basically, because of the strength of this current story.
My line was, who or what is Fury? I laugh because this was the first thought that came to my mind. I love that we've had a ton of story and character development with Ronnie, Jason, Zithertech, and the Firestorm concept worldwide, but we still don't know the answer to Fury. This book took me a few issues to warm up to. And let me be honest with that, it's mainly because I'm a huge Firestorm fan. But when it clicked, man, did it click. I mean, and everything beforehand that I was like, I'm not sure on, it all fell into place, and I'm like, I totally get it. This is exactly what I love about Firestorm. I just needed to see how it was getting there. And it was the most recent issue we reviewed was the one where it really just came together for me, issue 5. I finally got to see all the little connecting threads. And I'm with you. This is the time, if you want to go back and read some of the previous Firestorm stories, I think it's a good time to do that because you're going to make a lot more connections between this book and that now. Even though this is a full relaunch and reboot of these characters, I think you can still see the core of what's cool about Firestorm in this book when you look back at the other material. So it's a good time to go back and seek that, because I needed that. I needed that connection, being a fan of this, to kind of see how this is what I like about Firestorm and everything. It's a great book. I think that's hard sometimes when you're relaunching a title. That's why I'm sad with some of the titles that are, Firestorm isn't one of them, but some of the titles that are being canceled, because I think when you're doing a new version of a concept, it takes a little while for a book to get buzz. If that makes sense. It takes a few issues for people to start talking about it and getting the word out that, hey, this is a cool book and here's why. And I think you need to see sometimes where stories develop. It's hard in comics nowadays because I don't think you have as much time as you used to have to really develop things because of sales numbers, especially on smaller concepts and titles. I think you really have a small window, and it's you've really got to deliver on that. This is a book that, for me, when it clicked, I'm really into it now. But it wasn't always that way. This took me a little while in the journey. And I'm glad that I stuck with it because it really built to something very, very satisfying and cool. Next book, Jim?
Green Arrow. I'm digging Team Arrow. I'm digging a high-tech, slick style. This is a really cool, present-day, realistic vibe that the new 52 is going for. Outstanding.
I'm going to modify mine a little bit. A man who can stand toe-to-toe with the metas as long as he gets by with a little help from his friends. Only because of your little song.
That would have been a great song.
And it was only a very...
I'm kicking myself for not thinking of that.
And I put down as long as he has a little help, but as long as you did your little song thing, I'm like, okay, let me go into Jim's theme here for a little bit because it doesn't actually ruin my line. Growing up, I was always a fan of Green Arrow. He was the true everyman who used to use like these trick arrows to compensate for the lack of superpowers. He also had a strong moral code. I liked the humanity that he can have, even with the moral debates with other good guys, because of the sense of politics that are his own. Like, you got two good guys who are both truly good. Like, Green Arrow's a good guy, and you got another guy. But Green Arrow's politics are like in one direction, and the other ones can be in another, and they butt heads because of it. He shows us what would happen if Robin Hood were a superhero. And that's not just about the weapon choice, but also looking out for people instead of just big business. I love that those decisions play out in his company, with them wanting him to be on like a bit of a leash using one of his closest confidants. There's a great use of tech, a nice balance of the support team that I mentioned, yet Ollie still isn't afraid to go off the radar. This is another title that took me, I got to admit, this one took me a few issues, as we mentioned on the show, to get used to the status quo. But I've become a fan as it's gradually developed. I'm truly excited for Anne. It's Nocenti. I know I butcher her name. I think I add an extra N in there whenever. I think I say Anne Nocenti, and I butcher her name. And I really want to note it because I adored her Daredevil work. Green Arrow is a title to watch, and that preview image of what's coming up with her taking over looks really great. But I've been digging the book. It took a build. Now I'm into the guy, and with the new writer coming on, I'm really excited to see what she does with it because her Green Arrow was out. I mean, not Green Arrow. I'm sorry, Daredevil was outstanding, and her taking over Green Arrow I think is just a really nice fit. So issue 7 I think is her first issue, and just a great opportunity to jump on this book. Next book is Mr. Terrific.
R-E-S-P-E-C-T, find out what it means to me. R-E-S-P-E-C-T, E-C-T, suck it to me, oh yeah.
My ears.
I know, I hold on, I gotta apologize for that one. I butchered that one bad, but
I feel like I'll never get that time back.
For me, Mr. Terrific, the reason I threw out the respect is just because of the respect I have for this title.
Wait, hold on, wait, Jim, hold on, wait. That was respect?
It was supposed to be, but
no, I'm kidding. Go ahead. That was actually really funny. Go ahead.
Yeah, but seriously, I am sad to see this one go because Michael is just an awesome character, and it's funny because I do want to distinguish the man behind the mask is somebody that I really like. The hero's cool. I dig the adventure behind the title, but it's the man and his motivation behind being a hero that I really found fascinating. And he is somebody I hope gets life in another title. If another creative team's able to use him somehow, if there's something, I don't want this to be the end of Mr. Terrific because this is a great character. A great, it's kind of sad to see this one go.
I want T-Spears. That was my line. I want T-Spears. Seeing this dude floating around on these things, using them as an information source, I'm a tech junkie. I had a little trouble getting used to this book at first because I am so used to the JSA member. As the story developed, though, I saw Mr. Terrific as a character that I really enjoy. I loved his sense of wonder at scientific discovery and how he takes us to these new dimensions. The mystery around his son is something I still want answers to. Bottom line, the T-Spear, though, as a use of a mode of travel, looked very cool, with him, hovering on them with his feet, and I don't know, it's another normal human being using modern tech to compensate, but also using his brains in a way that sets him apart from other heroes that are using tech. I loved his self-examination as his own mistakes, because he made tons of them along the way, but seeing him gradually become a better hero because of them. evaluating a situation, saying this is what I would have done before, and we saw him do that, and then learning from it and becoming something more. Again, using his brains to evolve, to advance, recognizing that his own pain was something holding him back. I'm with you. I'm sad this is canceled, but hope to see him elsewhere, because this is one that I really feel that over time could have generated some buzz, because it's an interesting book. Next book, Jim? DC
Universe Presents. I'm glad we have this nice catch-all title where the lineup will change periodically. It's kind of that palate cleanser that I always talk about, and I'm curious when the one story ends, what's going to be next? Who's down the pipeline? What's going to be the next thing I'm going to get a little exposure to, and will we go back to the previous stuff?
Anthology titles rock. I mean, that's my whole line on that one. You know how I feel about these. So this was something that I was looking forward to. This falls into that Legends of the Dark Knight wheelhouse that I really like. There are some characters and concepts that can't make their own series or even a miniseries. There are also characters that are on a team that deserve like a solid solo story or some fleshing out. Anthology titles like this are a great opportunity to test the waters and give us something a little different. I really like the Dead Man story. I can't wait to read Challengers of the Unknown. That's coming up next. I think titles like this are important when you want to establish a larger universe, and I hope fans continue to give this book a shot. If you're not reading it, the great part is you can jump on a story arc by story arc basis. So definitely take a look at what's coming up. Try out this title. Show DC that they're making a good move by putting out a book like this, because I think it is something different where, like, if you're like, I can't follow a ton of books, but I want to see, like you mentioned, just different concepts and get exposed to new things. Titles like this, I think, are really, really important for some variety in your reading. And I love that the creative teams change every arc. I think that's something that's important, too. Give people a chance to tell maybe a story that they couldn't launch into a book that they really want to get out there. I think it's a cool idea. I think we benefit from it. You know I'm introducing the next one. The Savage Hawkman. What did you come up with for this one?
He rocks the mace all night long, bashing and a-bopping the people who do wrong. All the little Robins and Batman love to hear the Hawkman go tweet, tweet, tweet. Savage Hawkman, tweet, tweet-a-lee. Savage Hawkman, tweet, tweet-a-lee.
Wow.
I just had to ruin that title for you just for the fun of it.
Yeah, wow.
all kidding aside, I am a Hawkamaniac, and this is a title that I do enjoy. It's great hero moments, but we also get a pretty cool Carter Hall out of it. I like seeing where he's at and where he's going to, and I'm curious as to what's going to happen to him, not just what's going to happen to Hawkman, which is a good way to go with a hero. You want to be, beyond the actual hero. You want to go beyond the mask, and I do with Hawkman. So this is definitely a really kick-ass title.
My line is finally the Gentleman Ghost. I'll admit it. I needed this book to build to something. I'm a Hawkman junkie. I love Hawkman. I've gone back and I've gotten all of the Hawkman stories from the past, either through hardcover collections, showcase volumes, single issues, whatever, the various different runs. I really love the character. This is something I owe a lot to Jeff Johns and Gray and Palmiotti. Jeff Johns bringing him back in JSA, then Gray and Palmiotti's work when they took over the solo title. There was something about everything they did in those books that really just made me connect with the character concept in a way that I never had an opportunity to really follow Hawkman. And once I did, it was like, wow, I love the character. So I went back and just got so much of stuff. I read Hawkworld years ago, and then I had that series, and it just made me see how everything Hawkman using this concept of reincarnation could somehow be nicely blended together. Issue 5 brought this great cliffhanger with the Gentleman Ghost. Hawkman is at his best when there's a great mix of mystery and danger mixed with high action that the mace-swinging wonder can bring like nobody else. I have to admit that I still miss the classic costume, but I'm enjoying that the costume changes due to the nth metal storytelling, and that's really a cool thing that's been brought into play, so I'm into that. The increased focus on Carter's internal dialogue is really important for me. It's made me start to connect in a way that I should be as a really diehard Hawkman fan. I love that he tried to give up the mantle, but that something keeps bringing him back. When he embraces it, we're starting to see something special. This is a book that's rising up my stack as this is the one I'm probably super critical of it because I am such a Hawkman fan and I've got my idea on what I want Hawkman to be. So they need to chop away at my concept and introduce me to their direction, and it's working. They're getting there. But it is. I think they need the mace.
Yes.
I'm into the book though. It's not a negative criticism on the book. It's not top of the stack for me yet though. And I think it's something. I think it's one of those books that, as the story's developed and I'm getting used to, I'm starting to see the Hawkman that I love. That Gentleman Ghost cliffhanger. It's been kind of like a culmination of the directions that it's been going in. I'm like, now I'm starting to see it. It's starting to feel that way. And it isn't just Gentleman Ghost. It's just the development of the story and Carter's dialogue. I'm connecting with him. You know who I'm missing big time? I got to admit, Kendra.
Yeah.
It's funny that I'm saying Kendra, not Shira, but I love Kendra. So I like that when they kind of combined them, and Shira came back, there was this feeling that there was parts of Kendra to who Shira is, and I want to see that kind of concept eventually brought back. I'm patient in waiting for that, but I do want to see that. Hawkman needs a Hawk Girl or a Hawk Woman or however they want to go about it. I like that there's a vague mystery as far as was there one? What is his past like? We don't know a whole lot of that. Yeah. And I actually like that. I quite like the mystery. So that's something that I'm digging too. I don't know everything about Hawkman and his past, and I'm patient. I want to see that develop. So they've got me interested in the series, and it is rising up my stack as we're going along. So I'm curious to see where they take the character.
Yeah, we do need her, I think, eventually in the book. I'm enjoying what I'm seeing, but there is that big mystery there. There is that piece that I want answered, and I just want explanation. And I think it definitely would add to the story, if we bring her in.
There it is, going into that tunnel.
I want to give a quick shout out to the CGS Wild Pig Super Show. And this is in place of the Comic Geek Speak Super Show. I'm a big fan of Comic Geek Speak, and just the guys, I consider them friends. So I really wanted to shout out. They've done a number of things over the years with Wild Pig Comics. And their website you can check out is wildpigcomics.com. This is going to be May 5th and May 6th. On May 5th, it's 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. On May 6th, it is 10 a.m. to 5 p.m. at the Embassy Suites in New Jersey. And there's more details on that wildpigcomics.com website. But it's right around Free Comic Book Day, so it's a perfect time to go to a convention. Actually, Free Comic Book Day is that Saturday, May 5th. So it's a great time to be at a convention. So you want to check that out, and I want to thank the Comic Geek Speak for their ongoing friendship with our podcast. The Super Show has always been a great community-filled convention. If you've never been to one, this is a great time to do it, especially if you're going to be anywhere in the New Jersey area. Plus, to be there during Free Comic Book Day is fantastic. So definitely check that out, the Super Wild Pig Show.
G'day Sean, g'day Jim. This is Brett from Australia again. Wanted to jump on your bandwagon of describing the new 52 in one sentence. You put out the call, and I thought, like a loyal listener, I'll answer it. So I'll get stuck in. I've got half a dozen or so. So here we go. So All-Star Western. Jonah Hex is a hideously scarred bounty hunter, and Amadeus Arkham, a frontier psychologist. Together, they are Gotham City's original odd couple. And now for Batman. Bruce Wayne is targeted in a centuries-old conspiracy. Can Batman save himself and take back Gotham City from a sinister cabal that has ruled it for centuries? Now, my current favourite comic, Batwoman. Kate Kane uncovers the mystery of La Llorona in the comic with the new century's best art. Not just the best art in the new 52, in my opinion, but the best art, oh man, in a long, long time. Sorry, that was extra there, not just a sentence. Animal Man, body horror with Buddy Baker and his daughter, whose own powers are just emerging. Swamp Thing, Alec Holland may have to become the Swamp Thing for the first time to defeat the world-decaying rot. A couple of awesome horror books there. I'm very excited that I've really been enjoying the new takes, the different sub-lines, sub-genres I don't know what I'm talking about. In the new DCU, the dark stuff, the horror stuff, very, very exciting. Another one of the favourite titles, Justice League International, JLI. Watch Booster Gold as he struggles to fulfill his role as leader of the UN's Justice League. And finally, The Flash, a book that I'm really surprised to be enjoying. I didn't really dig the most recent Jeff Johns run, and I just thought that Francis Manapul and Brian Buccellato being the artistic team on that book would pretty much carry on the same story, and they have, but they've been doing it really, really well, and I'm actually enjoying it, which is a surprise, but a pleasant one, because Wally West Flash is my favourite DCU character of all time, and Barry, of course, is up there too, so I'm quite happy that The Flash is really good again. So finally, this is my sentence for The Flash. An amazing fusion of words, images and sound effects combined to masterfully tell the story of Barry Allen's exploration of his new speed powers. Thanks, Sean and Jim, for the opportunity to once again shoot my mouth off. Love the show, and look forward to hearing much, much, much more of it in 2012. Okay, boys, thanks again for your time. Talk to you soon. Look after yourselves. See you later.
This is exactly why I love voicemails and what we do at the show. It's funny. We had a couple new listeners on Facebook, and it wasn't a bad thing. They were, giving the natural criticism that I think people get from our first shows. Remember when we first started? I think that's one of the things that I've come to realize. When you and I first started, it was you were the new to DC reader, so we did like kind of a review show early on. Yeah. And I was the unapologetic, and I still am, the unapologetic fanboy. I don't have anybody who's met me or sat down and had conversation with me when it comes to comics. I just don't have, comics are my escape from the negative nonsense in real life. So I don't have, this massive urge. I don't get mad about comics. I'm always excited to read comics. The worst thing I can say about any comic that's in my stack, I pretty much so know myself and characters and concepts and creators I'm interested in. The worst thing I can say is it's a book that's okay. I'm enjoying it. I'm waiting to see where it builds to. And if it continues to be that way, I'll abandon that and go to something else that, is knocking my socks off. I don't get, I don't get these angry emotions about comics. It's just not in that place for me. It's never been. It's always been my escape from that nonsense, if that makes sense. But when we were originally doing the show, the review thing was very interesting because for you, they were new titles, new concepts, things you weren't reading at all. I don't think. You weren't reading anything, right, when we started?
No, not when we started. So I was borrowing books from you to do on the show.
So it was an interesting hook that worked until you became a fanboy in your own right. And then it became, redundant. We were both saying the same thing, that we liked everything and all that. So we took that out of it and really became more of a fanzine. And that's really how I view this show now. I grew up reading comic fanzines that were published by fans, people like me who, are into comics and just want to share, their own dialogue on where they think stories are going and think beyond the page and do all that kind of fun stuff. So that's what Raging Bullets really became quickly. And fortunately, you were like-minded, and that's what you really wanted to do. So it just worked, and it gave us an identity that's consistent, that people know when they hear the show. That's, what they're going to get. But none of it's fake. None of it's some edict or something that you and I have. We're really just, every week when we come record, this is just naturally what we want to chat about and how we want to chat. We've never had a talk off the air saying, you can't be negative, you can't say this, you can't say that. It just doesn't work that way. This is just, if you were at a dinner table having a conversation with us about comics, this is the conversation we'd be having. It really is. So it was funny. It came up on Facebook. I thought it was really I like when people come to us, and give us an opportunity, if they got any criticisms about the show, and give us an opportunity to respond to it. I thought it was a really nice, fun discussion. I'm always leery to type stuff, though, because very similar to the podcast, I've got, diarrhea of the mouth. But I like this, with Brett. It's a great example, and Brett made me think of this. I love the interactivity of our listening audience. I love that, when we're doing something like this, Brett felt compelled to say, hey, I want to start talking about some of these books. And it's great to hear, Brett's ideas on some of the titles and hear where Brett maybe is thinking in a different direction than I am, but it's very personal to him. But then other areas where we kind of overlap because I'm with him. I loved Wally West. I had that same Flash reading experience, and this is finally that title that feels like the Flash to me, and I haven't felt that way in a while. And I think, we're both on the same page on that one, that there's something special about when this book rebooted. It had that something. I still feel like it's the same Barry Allen and all that, but for some reason he feels young and exciting, and there's a lot of hope to him and things that I think this character's really needed to have that connectability. I'm hoping people are trying the Flash who maybe didn't like the previous run or couldn't connect with the previous run, didn't abandon reading this title, because I think there's something different. Are you feeling a difference with this book?
I don't want to say feeling a difference. I'm feeling a connection to the Flash that I didn't really have. That, I don't know. As I said, I'm not used to the younger Flash. I'm not used to the building and the growing of it. I thought he was a cool character, but now I'm getting more behind him, and I'm understanding him a little bit more, the man behind the Speed.
Yeah. I think it is going to be different. And I do think you touched on it before. You didn't have the reading background.
Yeah, see, I can't say it feels so different because I didn't have a before. My before was really, Bart, and then the last reboot, the Wally story where it was the West family and all that. But even that wasn't that long of a run for me to say this is my Flash. So it's for me, this is something that is really good from the reboot. It's giving me a chance to have a solid Flash.
I loved his comments about All-Star West here with Arkham and Jonah Hex.
Original Odd Couple.
Yeah, that's a great book that I think I'm hoping for that the relaunch of that title has brought in new readers that stick with the book. Because I think Jonah Hex, I almost called him Jonah Rex. I'm inventing a brand new title. That's his dog, his friendly dog.
The Jurassic Park era.
Yeah. I'd read that book. As long as it's written by Gray and Palmiotti.
I'm in.
That's the caveman version of Jonah Hex. He brings law.
And a big club.
It's pretty sad. I would read that.
Yeah.
But I think Jonah Hex was one of those titles that I don't think people gave it a shot. I think it had a certain set numbers, and I think the quality was just incredibly top notch. But I kept looking at the numbers every so often because I don't follow that a lot. But when I do, I'd look at them and I'm like, how are not more people reading this book? Because I think that book just had instantaneous jump-on points all over the place. You didn't need to read any of the previous material at any time to jump onto Jonah Hex. It was, every so often they do a 6-issue arc, but mainly it was done in one stories that you didn't need background to. And I was really, for the quality of that issue and the creators that were on board, I just was constantly sad that book was not generating more interest. And I'm hoping now this new series, I'm hoping this one benefited from doing this. And that those numbers are maybe increasing somewhat, and the buzz is increasing somewhat. But that's one, I also feel that that's a book that should be marketed to the Western crowd too. You know what I mean? There's people who read Western books that are out there. And they should should be really, those websites should be inundated with Jonah Hex links.
Yeah.
Because I do think that just because I think that first story arc with it being set in Gotham certainly offers a great jumping on point for a Batman fan to see that Jonah Hex is in their wheelhouse. But it also, that series is really catered to. I love Stephen King's Dark Tower series, for example, which is kind of a Western sci-fi fantasy mix with a bit of horror thrown in on the side. But the characters are very tried and true Western characters. Anybody who's a Clint Eastwood Western fan should be reading Jonah Hex. I do think this is a book that has the potential to bring in a new crowd to comics. And that's something that I want to see more of. And it's one of those books, I don't know, it's funny, when he mentioned All-Star Western, it was just one of those books that just instantly clicked with me, that I'm like, this is a transitional title. This is one of those to hook somebody in who is a reader, but is not currently reading comics. And that's the key there. I don't think you're going to pull in a whole bunch of people that don't normally read. You might get some. But, I mean, I think that is a crowd that would read this in a graphic novel form and really dig it. So, I don't know. That's kind of a little tirade on the side. But thank you, Brett, for calling in.
Hey, guys. This is Jamie Dunst. I wanted to talk about something you have spoke about last issue, which was the Before Watchmen. I want to say, to start off, I'm actually looking forward to these series coming out. I think the people they have on these books are top notch, and I'm looking forward. I would probably get these in trade because for me it'll probably read better, but I'm looking forward to it. Now, having said that, I can see where a lot of the hate comes from. This isn't like, Watchmen is a unique situation, in my opinion, in the sense that it wasn't a serialized story. It was, for all intents and purposes, a beginning, middle, and end. And it told a story that it needed to tell. Alan Moore made these characters, based off Charlton characters, but he gave them new names. He gave them different personalities, and in this sort of way, it's not any different than Kurt Busiek's characters from Astro City, who are basically homages to the DC and Marvel characters. Sometimes when you have a story like Watchmen that's so revered. I mean, it's on Time magazine's, I think it's top 50 greatest stories of all time, or top 100 stories of all time. It's maybe top 50, and it transcends just comic books. There's definitely a thing where other people start writing these characters, you definitely will lose the voice that they originally had with the original writer. Again, I used Astro City as an example. Kurt Busiek had always said, he will never have anyone else write Astro City characters because they are his characters. He said, I could have Mark Waid write a story where he blew up the moon. Well, that doesn't do anything for me. Now when I get my characters back, I have a blowed up moon. And he could write Samaritan. Kurt Busiek said, Mark Waid could write Samaritan, but he wouldn't write Samaritan the way I would write Samaritan. And so it wouldn't be the same. And I think that's what a lot of people are complaining about. All these writers could write, Rorschach or Silk Spectre, but they won't write them the way Alan Moore writes them. You can't. I mean, Alan Moore is Alan Moore, and as much as people can get, the feeling behind what these characters are about, it won't be the same as the creator writing them. And Batman has been around for 70 years and been written by a lot of different people, but I feel like a different thing where these characters were only appeared in this one, I think, epic storyline and nowhere else. And so you only have the one take. And, the bottom line is that this is not anything about, developing these characters. It's a cash cow. It's about making money off of a very lucrative franchise. And I don't see a problem with that, really. To be all honest with you, that's business. DC is a business. They want to make money, and this is a way that they could do that. I don't have a problem with them doing that. I think integrity-wise, maybe not building the best bridges with Alan Moore, but I guess the bridges have probably already been, burnt and stomped on and, chopped up with an axe. But, I understand why people have a problem with it. Now, will I be reading this? Of course. But I also question, why do we need them? Why do these characters have to be explored, the backstory? I don't think I ever clamored for what they were like before Watchmen. Will I read it? Sure, because they'll probably be good stories. But it doesn't change the fact that I never really thought about what they were like before Watchmen. And I think a lot of people who have problems with it are, true Alan Moore fans. They're big Alan Moore fans. And it's, to me, this would be like having, like you use Star Wars as an example. To me, this would be like having all the prequels done, and they had nothing to do with George Lucas. If someone else decided to write and direct them, obviously it didn't happen. But I'm just saying that would be the equivalent to me. And I question their reason for doing it, but I will probably still enjoy it, and hopefully there'll be great stories. But I do get why people aren't interested in this. But it's, and I don't question their fandom in this. To me, this is about people who are such big fans of, I think maybe big fans of Watchmen, that they see anyone else doing these characters but Alan Moore as a slap in the face. So something to think about. I mean, it's not, again, I don't have a problem with it. I'll probably be reading this. I definitely probably will get in this in trade. But I do question the motives. Again, DC is a business, and they're about making profitable, choices, and I hope it is profitable. But, is it necessary? Who knows? We'll find out. But I just wanted to play devil's advocate on this one for a bit. But it's definitely an interesting thing, and I think a lot of people will be looking at it, and I think that's the biggest point of it all. So, all right, guys, talk to you soon. Bye.
Jim, I'm like chomping at the bit for this one. First of all, I want to say I have a ton of respect for Jamie. So I have a different counterpoint to this. And this is now no disrespect to Jamie. If anything, I would love to sit over drinks with Jamie and continue debating this, because I think, we'd have a wonderful, fun back and forth tete-a-tete, because I think he's just a great guy. My big issue with this is I'm a huge Alan Moore fan. I'm going to use his Miracle Man series as an example. Neil Gaiman followed up his Miracle Man series and took it to places that Moore wouldn't have, and really wrote an incredible Miracle Man story. Now, if you read both versions, if you read Alan Moore's Miracle Man and then read Neil Gaiman's Miracle Man, there's distinct differences between the two. You can clearly tell who's writing which issues. They're both artists. They do incredible jobs. Gaiman's work doesn't change Moore's work. Moore's work is set in a certain way. It's gorgeous. It's amazing. The writing off the page, it's just, personally, for me, I like Miracle Man, and this might, I might get struck by lightning because of this. I think Miracle Man's better than Watchmen, myself. I loved Moore's run on that. I think that stuff is just terrific. I'm still reading his stuff, though. I like his New League of Extraordinary Gentlemen from Top Cow. I read Lost Girls. I like Moore stuff. I tend to follow him. I'm a huge Moore fan, so nothing about any of this has anything to do with that. I think it's a little... First of all, Alan Moore has every right as a creator to say, I wish they wouldn't do that. I don't like that they're going to do that and all that. As a creator, if you wrote a book, and you want it kind of protected and do all that, you have a right to feel that way. The reality is, though, legally, I don't know how that works, and I can't pretend I understand all the inner workings. Whatever reason, DC has the right, and they're allowed to publish this, right? So yeah. I don't know what the legal issues are, and I know that there are still some legal issues behind the scenes with what happened with all that. I'm not going to pretend I understand that, and maybe if I knew everything about the legal issues, I might feel more Alan Moore's way on that end of it, on the legal end. But regardless, I'm going to be 100% honest. Even if I felt that way, I'm still looking at the creative teams that are lined up to write these series. I want to read them. I think they're going to be great. I don't think any of it counters what Alan Moore did. I don't think any of it means that Alan Moore's series has any less value. I think people are forgetting, too, that this idea that Watchmen... I don't think everybody and their uncles read Watchmen. And I think anything that brings buzz and new interest to Watchmen might get somebody who's never read Watchmen before to read Watchmen. Let's do something new. Let's get something exciting going. Is it a cash cow? Absolutely. That's why there's 8 gazillion Batman books. Come on. That's why there's more than one Green Lantern title out there right now. Of course that comics do that. And that's not just exclusive to DC. Every comic company that has any brains knows that if there's a way to make money off of it, you should. I think what comic companies have learned over time, though, and where we're in a lot more of a golden age right now, for lack of a better term, comic companies have kind of got it. If you put out a bunch of fluff, people are more savvy than that now. There's a lot more choice now than there's ever been in comics. That stuff is that bubble's going to get burst really fast. I think they know it's a risk to do this. And I think when you look creatively at what they're delivering on a person-by-person, creative team basis, they've clearly pulled people with some sensibilities that can deliver stories that are set in the Watchmen world and not countering it. But, you got to look back at Watchmen. He was originally, and Moore really wanted to use the Charlton characters, but he also wanted to use the Mighty Crusaders characters eventually. And the reason why these substitute characters were put into place was he was feeling out which characters to use originally. So I don't know. To me, it's one of those things where, why is it okay for him to have used those characters, but then nobody else can use these characters in the future? He pulls characters that have been existent all the time. He pulled for Lost Girls all of the princesses, from these stories and wrote them into, a rather adult storyline, which I have no issue with him using them. I know that they're public domain. You can do that. But, he could have created original characters for those. He didn't choose to because what he wanted to tell, he felt worked better using those characters. And he's right to do that. I'm not sitting here thinking lightning should strike him because I'm a Disney fan. You know what I mean? I don't have that kind of mentality towards it. I respect the fact that as an artist, that's just something that he's going to do. But I also recognize that's Alan Moore's take. Disney's written a series of books called Peter and the Starcatchers. What they are is they're like prequels to Peter Pan. They don't counter what J.M. Barrie's done. That's still its own definitive work. But what they do tell is it's a prequel to Peter Pan. It really tells how Neverland was created, what Peter's life was like before then. It's been 3 books in the series. I've read them to my students. And these are big, meaty novels. They're not, small little picture books or anything like that. This is something with, just a ton of, character depth and substance. And I don't know. I think you can do stuff like that. Fables. Terrific book, Fables. All the characters in there are from famous fables. Those are books that can be used. I don't know. I just don't think that counters all of a sudden, Snow White. Snow White's not less valid because this character has been used by other people. I think the original work still stands as the original work, and it has a place that's going to set it aside. I don't think these before Watchmen books are also going to make people go, Watchmen has no validity anymore. Watchmen's got its own special place. It's always going to be on all those lists that everyone mentions. I think it deserves to be there. I don't think this is going to counter that. I'm hoping that on some level, these are close to that kind of quality. I think it's a very brave thing to put your name on this material. He's 100%. First of all, his thinking, I don't think there's any guess work on it. It is totally being done because it's a cash cow. As comic fans, I think we feel that somehow that takes away the integrity. I honestly, they need to think money-wise. But in the balance, they're not going to get any money if they're producing a junk product. You know what I mean? That's not going to have any longevity. These books, he's mentioning that he wants to read them in trade. They aren't going to make it to trade if they're garbage. You know what I mean? It's just that's kind of my take on the whole thing. I think we're so afraid that you can't do certain stories you can't touch. That'd be like saying Frank Miller's Year One. All right, I know it's Batman, and you can make the argument. There's been tons of Batman stories, but Year One definitely is one of those books. It's kind of in its own category, in its own visual art style. But Long Halloween thematically used a lot of the elements that Frank Miller created there. Jeff Loeb and Tim Sale did wonderful stories set in the Year One vein, the Year One style, the Year One story. Those, to me, Long Halloween, Dark Victory, and the Catwoman spinoff, those were really thematically set in the same world as Year One. I know it's the Batman world and all that, but those stories are set differently. There's something about them I don't consider those set into any particular DC continuity. And maybe other people do, and that's great. But I think they're Batman stories that are kind of set aside in their own little place. And I don't know. I think the creators can do that. They can take things that are thematic and go that route. It doesn't mean that Alan Moore has to like it. And I respect the fact that he has the right to say that he doesn't. I got a problem with the hatred, though. And I'll tell you why. Because I see these people with this deep hate. And that is where I do question fandom. And I'm sorry, I'm gonna call people out on this. If the people that are putting out that deep hate for this particular project are going onto websites and giving the same passion towards a comic book that they're enjoying, then they're true fans of comics. I have no problem with that. It's okay to feel that way. But if you are a fan of this medium, recognize what the numbers are like in this medium right now, and for God's sakes, do something to show you're a fan and promote comics. And these people that do this nowadays, I will argue that if you look on the internet, there's a lot more negativity out there than positive support of comics. And I think with the numbers there, they're doing creators and the comic properties a disservice. I'm not saying you have to go out there and lie about something, but for God's sakes, go out there and please promote something you like. That's where I question fandom. Not saying that people can't, Jamie's right. There is another side of this whole thing, and there might be people that just because of their view of Alan Moore, I'll be fair. He's right. There's people that might have that view, and that's okay. If you feel that way, go ahead and feel that way. But my argument is, on the flip side, please make sure you're promoting something with just as much passion and vigor than these hit-and-run tactics that I see every time there's an announcement. And understand that, yes, comics are about making money. They need to, otherwise they're not going to be there. And why are we so, like thinking that that's... And I'm not saying Jamie. Across the internet, you see this, where there's people who somehow make it's dirty that they want to make money in comics. Everybody that creates a comic project, there is the artistic element of it. That's the part that we all resonate with and connect with. But there is also, these people need to be able to make a living in this. So help them out. I mean, why are we so afraid to do that as fans? Why is that so dirty? That's the part that I've really got an issue with. The negativity is so outweighing the positive. And I've got a huge problem with that. Because there's people who call themselves fans that I never see them showing that they're actually fans. Being negative about comics does not make you a fan. I hate lots of stuff. That doesn't make me a fan of it. That's an antithesis of it. I mean, did we not get what the word means? I mean, hate does not make you a fan. I hate to break it to people. Sorry, I'm kind of going off on a tirade here. But it really bugs me. It does. It irritates me to no end that you see so many threads popping up for people hating a work that hasn't even published yet. None of this has been published. I might dislike this when it comes out. I don't know. It's not here. You know what I mean? Like the passion, like this is some kind of an abomination. I use Miracle Man as a class. I know that Gaiman got the approval of Alan Moore. And I think it's great when it works out that way because it's great for the creators in all levels when that happens. And I love that Miracle Man worked out that way. And yes, I think Miracle Man was better for it because there was a positive relationship there. I think it was good for Alan Moore and good for Neil Gaiman. But in this case, we know what Alan Moore's relationship is with DC. It's not a good one. Anything DC does with any of his properties, for the most part, he's not going to like. And you know what? And wait, I get that, and I can respect that element of it. I really can. That's why League of Extraordinary Gentlemen is no longer being published by DC. It's being published by Top Shelf, and it's great. Go read League of Extraordinary Gentlemen. I love Alan Moore. So I don't want that to get lost in this either. I'm an Alan Moore junkie. But there's a difference. I don't think DC's wrong for publishing before Watchmen. I just don't. And yes, it's for money reasons. But when you look at those creative teams, they're also smart enough to recognize we need to put out a top-shelf, top-quality piece of material here. Each of these miniseries better be doggone good. Otherwise, people are going to cry foul. So, I don't know. That's kind of my take. I don't know if you got anything else you want to add to it. I've been kind of rambling on, I know, but I'm very passionate about this.
Yeah, I wouldn't have guessed. I wasn't exactly sure where you stood on this one. Yeah. It's fun. Occasionally, every so often, I get, I'll get a message or an email from somebody, and they'll ask me, "Hey, were you asleep during that section? Because you're just going and going and going. I'm not even putting a single word out there." And there are times when one can't get a word in, but other times is I don't need to because you're covering everything you're saying. And I'm sitting here nodding my head, agreeing with you on a lot of the stuff you're saying here. So I got really nothing new to add to this that would, add to the commentary.
Well, here's the thing too. Let me go to the Astro City. Have you read any of Astro City?
No, I haven't.
Okay, Kurt Busiek's done a great job of crafting his own universe there. At some point in time, like when Kurt Busiek's no longer writing it, he's dead and gone. And I don't mean that I'm not wishing any harm to Kurt Busiek, please understand. But I'm saying years down the road, similar to like the Charlton characters and the Mighty Crusaders and, that type of stuff, there's going to, like, for me, Mighty Crusaders, I never knew any of those characters. But the Shield was brought in, and I think the Shield to me was one of the more cutting-edge comics. It got me interested in those characters. I want to read that older material. I haven't sought it out, but that is something at a convention I will seek out. And none of that would have been possible if the creative teams that took over the Shield when DC relaunched it hadn't introduced the character. Now I'm into those characters. It's an homage to those characters. Now, it's a new generation being exposed to it. If you isolate that stuff and never have an opportunity to freshen up and bring it back again, like those Charlton characters, the question. That is such a character concept. Denny O'Neil did amazing things with the question. If he hadn't, at some point in time, I don't know how that came about or how he got involved in that project. If somebody hadn't said, these were cool characters, let's do something with them, people today would not know who the question was. That's a concept that was created and it took on such a new life because somebody decided, let's take a risk with this and do something with it. The Question is one of my favorite comic series of all time. I love Denny O'Neil and his work there. So I don't know, some of these works, I think, we're so afraid to say that people can't do new things with these projects. Do they all hit a home run? No. It doesn't change your love for the original project, though. And I think it's important to keep these characters, if somebody has a good idea for them, to keep these characters current and relevant and let people know. I don't know. I'm baffled by all this. I don't know why we feel that we can't do any of this stuff. Miracle Man, I want to see new Miracle Man stories. I think it's a great, but you got to be careful with that and have creators on it who get the idea and get the concept to make it that cutting edge. I don't know. I just, it's not. This isn't exclusive to Alan Moore's work. I don't think anything's untouchable. I really don't. As long as you've got quality people who've really got really strong ideas. That's my take.
Well, Elliot Ness is untouchable.
And they made new stories with him.
But John Connery isn't.
Even though he's a real character, I love that. We got a real guy and they got new stories with him. Nothing's sacred. That's funny. That's a good example.
Like a human helicopter, the Flash rotates his body, rising faster, faster!
Before we go on to our next book, I want to apologize to Jamie. None of that was an attack on him. I'm rather passionate about just fandom in general right now. I think a lot of people now, I don't think they know where to go to say they like something because you immediately get jumped on. And I think that's become an internet thing. And that really bugs me. That it's the second that something is announced or somebody says they like something, there's this like pile on the person.
Oh, God, yeah.
I think fandom as a concept, people have forgotten what it's like and they're trying to squash it. It's like really, there's a lot of internet bullying. So I'm rather passionate against it. And so I guess that's where it came from. So I want to apologize to Jamie again. That wasn't on him. He sparked something in me that comes from a lot of sources, not his comments. I thought his comments were honest. And I know he called in specifically because it's an interesting topic to him and he was painting the other side. And I do see elements of that. I agree with him to a certain extent, but I think there's another side to look at. So it's a fun topic. Anyway, let's go to our next book, Jim, which is
Action Comics. Somebody save me. I had to go back to the Smallville theme.
I'm against that.
You kidding? That's awesome. I'm loving this exploration of the early Superman, and I actually kind of wish they would continue telling some Superman stories in the past, but it's funny because this team knows my Superman. They get what I want from a Superman story. So when they kick it to present day, I know everything will be safe and all will be well. So I'm in such a wonderful spot when it comes to Action Comics.
My line, now this is Superman. This is it. I was so worried about this book in the relaunch. For some reason, on paper, it seemed like a huge mistake. I have to admit, I'm glued to this new take on Superman. Everything I love about the character is here. Superman's very likable. I'm still wrapping my head around Clark Kent's relationship with the Daily Planet staff. To me, it was always his endearing nature that was in the spotlight. We accepted that the hometown boy was under the radar. But now we have a writer in the headlines. And I'm just talking about like in the past and modern day too, because these are all thematically playing off each other. It's the strong stories that he brings that keeps him from being fired due to his eccentric behavior. I like his relationship with Jimmy Olsen, as his Clark Kent character instead of being Superman's pal. That was a cool move. I have to admit that I do miss his parents greatly, but I've enjoyed their use in flashbacks. This book in particular, the writing and art are top shelf. I love jumping to the past because I know I'm mixing present day with the past, but I think this is really, I don't know how you can look at the Superman reboot without looking at both because it all thematically ties in together. They're crafting a new Superman world. I love in the apartment the old lady that became a confidant, how she protected him, how really, Clark doesn't know how to protect his identity. He doesn't have the parents to tell him how to do it. He's kind of on his own. And for as much, I miss the Kents a great deal, but I like that the fact that the Kents are there are being used for storytelling purposes. It's not being ignored how this would change his first interactions in Metropolis. And I think that's something this book has benefited from. Writing and art are like top of the stack. I kind of wish both titles were set in this era in some way, like you're mentioning with the past exploration of the character, because to me it is a full reboot of the character. There's no reason why we can't just follow him growing gradually. Yet there's things in the Superman book that finally started to click with me too. I think I was so stuck on the past for a while, it hurt me from connecting with the actual main Superman book for a little bit. But then, like, issue 3 came along, and it all of a sudden woke me up to issue 1 and 2 and what I've been missing in that title. So I'm with you that, like, when this comes to present day, I'm going to be fine with it because I'm starting to like that as well. I thought I was really not going to like this, and it's just the opposite. This book, when Action Comics comes out, I jump to this book right away, which is a distinct change from where I've been with Superman. Superman's been kind of a middle-of-the-stack book for me. I've always liked Superman. I've been glad it's been in my stack. But it's been a while since Superman's been a top-of-the-stack read. I don't know if you had that experience with it, but that's kind of where it's been for me. This turns Superman totally into must-read material. It's up there. And Superman should be up there with Batman, as far as being in Green Lantern and Aquaman and Flash and Wonder Woman, all these books that I want to read. Superman's up there now to the point where it will actually, it's the very first book I read the week it comes out. Action Comics. That never has missed since this title's been relaunched.
Oh, big time.
So it's a great title. Let's talk about Superman then, Jim.
Superman. At first I was afraid, I was petrified. I kept thinking I could never live without you by my side. I was terrified about the termination of the Lois and Clark marriage. I was just so like, no, they can't do that. And it just really just, kind of hurt, just thinking of the ending of it. And I didn't want to let it go. And I didn't want to lose that because I love the Lois and Clark relationship, the Superman and Lois Lane relationship. Just this great, you see why, Superman would love this woman, and it was just this wonderful stuff. And then when the story starts, I started getting the story. I started reading and I started seeing how they were doing it. It was, it made me realize something. They didn't terminate the marriage. they've put it at a time when I'm going to get to see again the birth of their relationship. I'm going to get to see their first date. I'm going to get to learn when she learns the secret. And there's just so much more on the horizon that I'm going to get to see again. That I'm going to also get some more future stuff coming in. That I stopped being upset about it and really started enjoying the story I was given, especially because I saw that the cool Lois that I always loved in the Lois and Clark relationship was still there. And as soon as I saw that the supporting cast was still that same wonderful supporting cast, and I wasn't losing that, everything just like the anger and the pain just went away, and I was like, yes, this is my Superman. And I was just so excited and thrilled, and it was just, this is one of those moments that this new reboot has really just made me feel wonderful about.
Do you think they'll be afraid to marry them again, Jim?
I think it'll take time, but we're going to eventually get it. Because it's something, I think their relationship is an iconic relationship, and they need to have that in there. I think it may be a couple years before they actually marry them off, but it'll happen down the line. And to be honest, I'm cool with a 10-year wait, 15-year wait, as long as we get a progression between the two of them. They can be a long, courtship and a long engagement, and once she learns the secret, that's going to change stuff, and that's going to tweak things, and things. It's going to, she's going to have to adjust again once she learns the secret, and so I think it'll happen. I think it's a long ways down the road, and I'm cool with that because I want to see the growth. I want to see where this goes.
It's one of the great love stories in comics, and if they shy away from that, that would be a huge mistake. Now, I do want to say I agree with everything you said. I want to see it build to that. I want to enjoy the build of that. I don't want it, bam, we're married again. That to me defeats the purpose of doing this. But let us live out that story, and I just don't want to see them gung-shy from that, because I think a married Superman is interesting, can be interesting with the right writers who are creative. And I don't think just because to me, a married superhero couple is just as interesting as an unmarried one. I think it offers a different kind of storytelling. Now, I don't want every DC hero married. But to me, Superman, the Lois and relationship, I want to see that eventually. Yeah. Eventually. Like, you're right. I want to go on the journey. And I love going on the journey again. I think that's fantastic. I loved it on Smallville. Look, we got 10 years of that. It eventually led to, what we're assuming happens with them. So I don't know. I think it's great. Now, here's my line. I love Nicola Scott. That was it.
Yeah.
It was her issue on this book that finally made it click for me. Now, let me step back a bit. I love George Perez, and the writing has been great. I think I've been so focused on the status quo change, though, just like you were mentioning, that I needed an issue that really showed me the majesty and wonder of Superman to make me drop that wall I put up. Superman needs to make you go, wow. Issue 3 was the one that seemed to bring everything together and made me a believer in the modern-day Superman. I was always into action comics, but this has been the book where, I don't know, for whatever reason, I think because it was set present day and I was seeing that, I think I was more critical of just because of that, whereas I think action had the advantage of being set in the past. For me, that was a great example of how you need to let a story develop a few issues before making a judgment. There are some sequences where George Perez and Nicola Scott, and really the whole art team, make me want to be Superman. That multitasking with the Fleischer robot still stands out for me. I also want to note, though, that Jesus Marino has done a great job with the art in this book as well. I don't want to appear that I'm knocking that art. It was just that issue. There was something about that. And then Nicola Scott, for me, is I'm a huge fan of her art. She's one of my favorite artists. Lois's role in the television area where she's at right now feels natural to today. Perry being her friend, mentor, and confidant is just a great usage. This book has become very special very, very fast, and I'm glad to see that, because I do think that I had a certain focus walking into this, and I do think it was a lot of baggage that was holding me from giving this book a shot, and I think it was with issue 3. I think it was just having an artist who is one of my favorite come on and seeing some of the majesty that was brought to the table. And I think it was, and that's not just Nicola Scott who brought it, it was the whole creative team in that issue. Everything just seemed to click and gel, and the character was in a place where I could see that, and I'm like, oh, wait a minute, this is Superman. What am I doing? That's what happened with me. That was really, and it actually changed my view of issue 1 and 2, and just everything kind of flowed. But it wasn't until issue 3 that I really felt that way about this book. I think it's an interesting distinction. That's when we talked about it on the show.
Yeah.
Superboy.
No, it's weird. I am digging the Super Bowl title, but I miss Connor Kent. But I don't want them to change him back to the way he was. It's I want this story to play out. I don't want them to rush things. I want them to give us a hero. I want them to give us Superboy, the real quote unquote Superboy boy, but I want it to be a natural progression. This is a title that I shouldn't be enjoying it because of some changes to some fundamental core character. Connor Kent had these qualities to him that I just so loved about him that have been thrown out the window. But I'm not angry about it because I want to see where this goes. I want to see if my Connor is in there. I want to see if that character that I really got connected to and I really became associated with, that I really enjoyed, is there still. And it's weird. With any other character, for some reason, I would be a little bit either angrier or upset. But with him, I'm not. But I'm still just equally passionate about the past.
It's funny, I was laughing during your Superboy flub, and the only reason why is because I do that stuff all the time, so it wasn't a knock on you. But here's my line. This is what happens when you mix Legos with your Erector set. And it's more than a joke. I love that the Luthor DNA, and have we had that verified? I think it's been
verified
hinted.
It yet, but come on, you know it is.
Right. Or there's something that he doesn't want in there, mixed with Clark's. And the environment has made it hard for this kid to have an emotional connection. To me, this shows the danger of trying to create people. I'm not necessarily against cloning body parts, organs, but this does play on contemporary fears of what happens if you start messing with DNA to make your own person. When you don't have a strong family background and a real foundation of morals, how do you choose to find your way in the world? I really like the use of Nowhere, Caitlin, and Rose in this story. Every relationship has gradually had impact, and we are watching him, grow through all of this. I'm with you. This was an interesting one. I was very worried about this character too. I also miss Connor Kent, and it's funny. I don't feel that this is Connor Kent. It's a new this is totally a new version of it. So, that Connor Kent, that story's done. This is a different character because he is starting right from the beginning. But I like what they're doing, which I was real worried that I wouldn't. And I think it's tied to Titans and how well that story's kind of organically playing. I'm enjoying that more than I thought I was going to. This one took me a little bit too, but the story's been, I think with the modern tech and all that, which you always get me with that kind of stuff, and the very deep substance of the VR versions of what he did. I always liked when they did that with Bart Allen, the VR world.
Yeah.
And I think it fits today to do it in modern day with Superboy. It's something that they really did a nice job with, and it made it feel fresh and new, and I'm liking the story. It's our next book, buddy.
Supergirl. A present-day look at Supergirl is what they said we would get, and I am so happy they are keeping that promise with this cool story.
Wow, you actually...
I actually did one line on this one.
Yeah, I'm like, whoa. I didn't expect that. I'm like, oh, you mean it's my turn now? Didn't expect a song or something.
No, and it's actually... one of the things about Supergirl I'm glad they're doing is we're getting a different first dealings with humans than Clark, but we're also getting a first dealings with humans other than her previous iterations. They've really changed how she's reacting to the people, how she's reacting to this world that she's on, and I was really glad that they went that route with it.
Supergirl is all about learning to hold on to a strong Kryptonian heritage while dealing with a new culture and who to trust. I was worried about this book in a big way, too. Because I firmly believe Sterling Gates and Jamal Igle have created a modern template for what great Supergirl storytelling should be. That being said, my hat's off to Michael Green and Mike Johnson. This book has really delivered. I love that she still questions if Clark is who he says he is. Who would believe that their homeworld was destroyed without evidence? And that was something I really liked. Searching out Argo, because, you're not just being convinced of one small event. This is the destruction of a world. Knowing that you respect so many of the people that were on there to handle themselves, I love that, because it felt very real to me. Searching out Argo, but also giving us a glimpse into the Kryptonian lore, really terrific, because I have to admit, with this title being a blank slate, much of Kryptonian history is the blank slate as well. So I'm enjoying a fresh take on classic concepts. My heart went out to her when she came across the remains of her home, that crystal with the message from her dad, seeing her dad killed, feeling that he was already dead anyway, but then actually seeing that happen. It's one thing to assume things, but there's always that small part of you that has some hope that, like, sure, she came across a dead rock, but that doesn't mean the people didn't, some of them didn't escape. Maybe Dad did. That verification of that, I was like, whoa. I want to know more of these world destroyers things that they've got going on. It's great to see threats that Kryptonians can face without being depowered. Because she's like bashed with that sword. I'm like, what? I think that's important. There's something to this book that is really important, and it's different. The World Killers. Yeah. I don't know, just something to me that I really liked. Batman?
This is what I think a Batman title should be about. The handling of Bruce, as well as Batman in this title, has been spot on.
The name says it all, Scott Snyder. This is a writer who is on a short list for me. I love everything he does. He does an excellent job of weaving and playing with the rich history of his characters. This is true in American Vampire, because I love the historical aspect of that and how well he plays with it. Batman and Swamp Thing. He is teaching us a master class on how Batman rises up from vulnerability in the Court of Owls storyline, and this is a concept, this Court of Owls, that I see remaining a permanent part of the Batman mythos. I think he's crafted something here that has enough legs to it, and wings, that it will stick around.
And beaks and talons.
Yeah, and all that stuff. But I do think this is a rich concept. And, he did this with Black Mirror. He's done it with this story. He does these cool long-form stories where there's, highs and lows in throughout the whole thing of events that are going on for the character. And I don't know, I'm constantly gripped by the stories he's telling. And this isn't exclusive to Batman, but it is something that when somebody tells a Batman story that makes me turn my head like this, I will say it. This is my favorite Batman title right now. And I know that we constantly do this like little teeter-tottering with them all. But when this issue comes out, there is something that feels just a little bit more special. And that's not a knock on the other titles. It's a compliment to this book. Because the other titles, I think, are quality titles, and we're going to talk about them. But this is my favorite Batman book right now. It's hitting me on all levels.
Yeah, this is a standard that I set for the handling of Bruce and Batman. This is how I want him to be. This is how I want, when I'm looking at the other books, and, I am a Damian fan, so if, the Batman and Robin title and the Detective Comics, they have a really strong edge because Damian's made stronger, more appearances in that. But when I look at Batman, when I think Batman, this is the title I go back to. This is the character that I compare any of the other incarnations of him to, and this is just an absolutely wonderful book for me. And this is, if I had to pick one Bat title of keeping, it would be this one. So,
next book,
Detective Comics. I am so glad that Detective Comics is living up to the reputation of the past. When the reboot was happening, this was one of the books they said they thought about keeping the old numbering just because of its vast history. And I'm glad they went with the reboot, and I'm glad these stories are holding up to what they did in the past, and the future looks just as bright.
The Bat book that started it all is filled with great art and the underrated storytelling of Tony Daniel. Tony Daniel won me over with his previous run on Batman. His ability to craft great Batman stories, whether it was Bruce Wayne or Dick Grayson under the cowl, has really impressed me. The current Penguin story is terrific because of the multiple layers. It's the Penguin gathering newbie villains like Mr. Combustible, using them as yet another gang funding source, but it's also really clear that he set them up so they would need his services and name. I like that. But while you've got this going on, also tied into all that, you've got this story with Charlotte and her sister, and the sister's dating Bruce, and they're on two sides of the law. And will Charlotte save her sister from what this snakeskin guy did? Bruce continues to face real threats each month. That's why I said, even though I'm saying that Batman's my favorite book, I don't want to discount what's going on here with Tony Daniel. I think this guy's really delivering on his Batman storytelling. This is a great book. It's not quite where Batman is for me, but it's still, I wouldn't put another creative team on this title. Detective Comics is fantastic.
Oh yeah, big time. This is a great story, and as I said, this holds up to me to the Batman Detective Comics of the past, of the Batman that came before this. This is, it's Detective Comics, Action Comics. Those were two titles that have this history, have this mythical lore to them, and this creative team is living up to that lore. It's living up to what it was and what it is, and the future is just looking really bright. And I was going to do the future looks so bright I've got to wear shades for this song, by the way. That's why I keep mentioning the future is bright.
Right.
But I actually threw that out because it is Detective Comics. I didn't want to do something completely goofy with this. I'm like, you know what? This is one I'm going to treat seriously. This is one I'm going to actually, I got to throw some respect there.
Batman the Dark Knight.
Here's the funny thing with this title. I sit there, I read it, I enjoy it, and then I say I don't have any passion towards it. But you put that book in my hand, and I start reading it, within like the second page, I'm smacking myself in the head, calling myself an idiot, saying, dude, this book is awesome. What are you talking about? And it's I think it's like a victim of the fact that there are so many bad titles that my attention and my concentration gets divided. But, this is a great title. This is a fun title. This is a really neat Batman title.
David Finch and Paul Jenkins show us how to use guest stars to remind us that Batman is part of the larger universe. This book stood out for me as an organic way to use team-ups to tell us more about Batman and his relationship with DCU heroes. Now, I'm going to agree with you. This is one of those ones where when I think of the Bat books, I tend to underrate this book. And I don't know why. Because I'm with you. The second I start reading it, I'm smacking myself in the head too. So, but I'm with, like, everything you just said, like, kind of echoes where I'm at. And then I read it and I'm like, wow. Because you can't argue with the use of the Flash, Wonder Woman, and most recently Superman. I like when we see reminders of just how powerful Superman is in relation to Batman. Somehow it makes me feel all the more impressed when Batman stands alongside these metahumans and brings something to the table using his mind and experience. Taking the extra guests out of it, though, I love the whole White Rabbit intro and also the use of classics like Scarecrow. And taking Batman's emotions to show that his experiments with fear have made him even more deadly and creative. I'm sad that Jenkins is being replaced. And I'm not no knock on the new writer. I haven't gotten a chance to see that yet, but I think he's done a great job. This is one of those books. It's the Dark Horse Batman title for me. I don't know what it is. I don't know why. When I read it, you're right. The second I pick up the book, I'm in the same place as you are. It's like I'm like, what am I doing? This book's great. But for some reason, when I think of the bad titles, this is always the one where I do that with, and it's nothing to do with the quality of the book at all. I don't know what's putting the stigma on it. It's not a fair stigma compared to the book that I'm reading, and I can't explain it.
Dude, we're complete agreement on this one. Batwing. I wanted something different out of this title, and I'm definitely getting it. And to me, he is not the Batman of Africa. Yeah. He is Batwing. He is his own hero with his own style, his own problems, and I really do enjoy that personalization of the character. Now, I like the tie-in and the appearance of Batman in the book. It shows Bruce hasn't just abandoned him. But this book doesn't need Bruce in it for me to want to read it. I'm fascinated with David, and I want to see where he goes.
Batwing shows that if you take the Batman concept and really craft it to a unique character and untapped environment, you have some new storytelling opportunities. The key here is that I like David. If you create a new character, there has to be a hook. It's also not just about David. It's about his past. David made mistakes in the past. He regrets those mistakes, and time has led him to try and make up for them as Batwing. His journey is very different from that of Bruce, but his motivation is strong. I'm glad his background is different. Making him a clone of Batman and setting him in Africa would have felt cheap. Instead, the environment and character are gradually being fleshed out. There's some connections there, but there's also a unique nature to it, and I love that it's being embraced to give us something that feels very fresh. I'm a big fan of Christopher Priest's work on Black Panther. I also love James Robinson's Starman. The comparisons work for me because both developed a unique character where the environment was just as essential to the feel and the development of the story. I hope this book has a nice long run, because I'm loving things like the gradual info on the kingdom. I also want to know what other historical gems we can learn about this region, superhero and not superhero. There's a lot of untapped potential here where storytelling hasn't been done before. The art's stunning, and I know it's changing, but I'm thrilled that Marcus 2 is the choice because he's another favorite artist of mine, and I want to see that guy on a monthly. So his Red Robin work was great, but the art so far on this book has been like breathtaking. I've really loved the art style and the choice, so I'm glad. I'm going to be curious to see what it's like when Marcus 2 takes over.
Yeah.
Batman and Robin?
Batman and Robin. And the cat's in the cradle with the silver spoon. Little boy blue and the man on the moon. When you're coming home, Dad, I don't know when. But we'll get together then, son. You know we'll have a good time then. If there was ever a book that shows the importance of a strong male role model in a child's life, it's this one.
And we don't have it.
I love Damien. This little monster is absolutely wonderful, but I'm loving this growth of this family unit, of this team between them, with Damien and Alfred, Damien and Bruce and Alfred's relationship. There is just some great growth of people, of family, of a team, and this is a book that I am so especially pumped for the future, because you know, as they grow as a family, as they grow as a team, their problems will grow with them. So longevity-wise, there are some interesting stories that come down the pipeline. There are some moments that come out of this team, and it's just pure excitement for what this is going to, give me and what this is going to come up with.
This book is all about the Batman family dynamic, and wow, does it know just when to pull at the heartstrings. I'm going to say without hesitation, this book is a very close second to Snyder's Batman. There are issues where there's not only some amazing Damien, but Bruce and Alfred moments, all that are real tearjerkers. Not only does it play around with the Batman legacy by introducing Nobody, and yeah, I geeked out at learning anything about the new depths of Batman's training in the past and how his personal code influenced those relationships, but it also plays around with the relationship, as you mentioned, between father and son trying to connect after years of his son being with another quote-unquote family, a quote-unquote family that has trained that son into being a killer as a way of honor. This book has a gripping use of Alfred, like I said. It's one of those titles. The artwork is fantastic. It's really, really close behind Snyder's for me. I know we'll get the accusing all the time. You guys love everything. It's not that simple. I've got a stack of books. When I pick up my titles, I don't read all of them at once. There is a category of it. My problem with comics has always been that there's so much material I want to read. I don't have the time or money to read everything I want to read. When you've got to make decisions as far as which titles to read and which ones not to, which ones to cut, which ones not to, you start looking at, all right, I got to rank them now. Where do they fall ranking-wise? And it is a book like this. Like, if I had to go down to 2 Batman titles, I'm saying it right now, I'd go to Batman and Robin. These are the 2 that are standouts. And that doesn't discount anything we've already said about the other 2 books in question. I think they're both terrific books. But these would be my 2 if I had to pick 2 Batman books right now. I'm talking about just ones featuring Bruce.
Yeah. Well, with me, this is the title that kept bumping Batman out of the #1 spot. And for a while there, I was saying that Batman and Robin's my favorite book. And it was because of the Damian relationship, because of the Bruce and Damian relationship. The reason I did put Batman over this was because I was finding I was enjoying this Batman so much because he had that feel of that other one. And I noticed I was using that as, my linchpin, as my, measuring standards for who Batman was. I'm like, well, if I'm doing that, then I got to say that's my #1. And that's, so it's a difficult thing for me to say that Batman beats Batman and Robin, but it's still a tough one, and I still deeply enjoy it. And if I pick my top 2 as those 2, if I had to pick between the 2 of them, it would be a fight, and it would be a lengthy process. And I would be like, hey, Sean, how about you get the one and I'll get the other one and we'll swap.
I would do that. And you know what? I'll be honest with you. I wouldn't care which one I got.
Yeah.
Because I'm with you. The opportunity to read it would be, if we had to pick, only 2 Batman books, where it featured Bruce. And I got to say it's because it featured Bruce, because we got other titles we have to get to that I wouldn't give up.
Yeah.
But if I had to pick one out of featuring Bruce, I would probably pick one of these 2, and it would be easier if I knew you were getting the other one.
Yeah.
I'm not against borrowing.
Yeah, amen.
Birds of Prey?
Yeah, Birds of Prey. Here's an interesting thing with Birds of Prey and me. This is going to be a lengthy one. This is not going to be a song or thing, but it's not going to be one line.
I think we're going to be pretty similar, too.
Because with me, I always, and I'm trying not to, I compare this Birds of Prey to the stories I've read in the past.
Uh-huh.
And those past incarnations were so amazing that it's hard to, give an honest, comparison of it, because that stuff in the past was just so amazing. It had Oracle, who was, probably one of my favorite characters ever, and now she's not on the team, and now it's a different dynamic, and things are changing. So Birds for me was a really tough way to go, but I'll tell you something. Over these past issues, it has done a remarkably well in pushing the past aside and saying, hey, check us out. We're not the same. We are different. We got some cool stuff going on here. Give it a read. Give it a try. And so there's definitely been some strengths coming out of the Birds of Prey for me, but I still hold on to the past with this one.
One of my all-time favorite teams is gradually hitting its stride. That was my line. I do like this book, but I have to admit it's taken me some time to attach myself to the new directions, a lot of what you were saying. To me, the Birds has always been about family. Huntress, Lady Blackhawk, Barbara, and Black Canary. I read the previous series from the original minis and one-shots straight on through to the final issues of both runs. The foundation of that family and that relationship made them stronger, and it was noticed by others that joined them. Savant and Creo and stuff like that as you're going through. Hawk and Dove. I do see this book heading to that place. The relationship I mentioned was built over time, and I'm glad that Batgirl now has been added to the mix. There's something about her relationship with Dinah that needs to be developed in this universe, so it looks like we're going to get more of that. To me, and I don't know if people connect this way, but for me personally, it's as important to me as Superman and Batman's relationship, Ollie and Hal's relationship, the typical buddy cop relationships that I like with some of the characters. And this is something I will gladly journey along with it and see it developed in this universe, but it needs to be done because I think it's an important relationship. I think there are certain characters that are stronger when they have each other. I've been an Outsiders fan since my childhood, and I'm choosing to believe that Katana is actually a little off, but there actually are voices in her story. I have to admit I'm enjoying following that, though. I think it's being well handled in this book, and I like how they're playing it. So it's not a knock, but I'm a Katana fan, and I've always liked her strength. So I'm choosing to believe that there's a real reason that she's a little off.
Hey, I think she's hearing voices. I think there's something there. Come on. Yeah, I'm with you. I want to believe that there's something beyond just the crazy female swinging a really big sword. There's something more to it. And I think there's going to be a moment when we as the reader will realize that she's not crazy. Holy crud, she is actually hearing voices. And I'm hoping we do get that point.
For any of the wrestling fans out there, I'm choosing to believe that she hears voices like Randy Orton does, and he turned out okay. So we're still not quite sure what those voices were, but it seemed to turn out all right for him. So I'm choosing to believe that she's going to be okay eventually, too, and will be a face. So I don't know. Poison Ivy and Starling are really strong on this team, but they both seem to have like this mix of a light side and a dark side of them. Like Ivy, that's no shock. But Starling, for me, I don't know, maybe you're feeling her differently than I am. She's a bit of an enigma. And I like that. I like the enigma to her. Like, I'm curious about her. The Birds of Prey concept is an important one for DC. It's a team that's always had a different flavor from the other DC titles. This goes right back to the original one-shots when it really was just Barbara and Dinah, and they'd have guest stars. It has the potential to reach its past greatness. For me, it has big shoes to fill because the most recent runs by Gail Simone are some of my favorite runs of all time on any title. So it's big shoes to fill, but I do find that I like this book, and it's building there, and I'm enjoying the build. So it's I'm putting disclaimers on it, but I will say that those are, I think it is past reading that's doing that. I do like what I'm reading, though. Batwoman?
Batwoman. First to fight for the right and to build the nation's might as the army goes rolling along. For me, Batwoman is a soldier story. Yes, she is a lesbian, and they do not shy away from that part of her life. But first and foremost, I see her as a soldier doing her duty, and I loved this distinction between her and Bruce and why they got into the hero game. This, is the thing that locked me into the character, made me really just, a strong, tie and connection to her. I was so happy that they went with this, and I'm just constantly impressed with this story and so looking forward to this.
It's hard to follow the work of Greg Rucka, but J.H. Williams III and W. Hayden Blackman have done him proud. And actually, I want to throw I didn't put this in my original line, but I need to throw that into the whole art team. One of the things I love about Batwoman is she's unique from the ground up. Sure, she's a lesbian, but I love that it's just one of her traits. It is being treated just as normal as any heterosexual relationship would be treated, but also provides an opportunity to show how those relationships have influenced her life. So it's important to the character. I like that. I like that it's not in your face all the time. It's natural. It's being treated with respect and dignity. That's something that I really dig about the book. Maggie Sawyer is just as important to her as Carol is to Hal. None of it feels fake because of that. It also has the roadblocks to those relationships that you would expect in any hero relationship. So that it really works well from me. It's not like cheesecakey or, it's done for shock value. It's done because she just happens to be a lesbian. Add into this, though, that she has to deal with Betty Kane, her dad, and the conflict coming in her life to DEO Chase and Agent Bones. This book just delivers. The visual style presented is just amazing. Panels and perspectives. And I got to talk about the perspectives because I love the way the perspectives are used in unique ways to create a sense of the villains and the situations, from whether it's water-based or ghost or whatever's going on or just straight up and up fighting. It's a terrific title that stays true to all of her Greg Rucka pen stories, and I think has advanced the character into somebody who really feels like she belongs in the DC universe and adds something unique to the Batman world. And it is a lot of that background that you're talking about fits right in there. Next one, Jim?
Batgirl. I am woman, hear me roar, in numbers too big to ignore, and I know too much to go back and pretend. Actually, it is the chorus that really rings true to me for Batgirl. It's, oh yes, I'm wise, but it's wisdom born of pain. Yes, I've paid the price, but look how much I gained. I loved Oracle. I loved the strength, her courage, her will, just the overall coolness that was Oracle and Barbara Gordon. And I never really read a Barbara Girl Batgirl before this.
A Barbara Girl Batgirl?
Yeah.
You said Barbara Girl.
What?
You said Barbara Girl Batgirl.
Barbara Gordon Batgirl before this.
I listen to everything you say.
Well, I don't. I obviously don't listen to everything I say. I just keep going. But I've never read the Barbara Gordon Batgirl. I've never, had that experience. So I had no idea what this was going to be like for me. Now, I knew it was going to be cool because it's Gail Simone writing. I knew she loves the character Oracle. She loves the character, she loves Barbara. So she's going to do the character right. But for me, this was kind of like when you go to, a baseball game and you see the player come up and just crack a home run, and you're just in awe of it. Now, this person's, hit hundreds of home runs in their career. They're a home run king, but guess what? Every time you see him do it, you still go, whoa, outstanding. That's my, feeling from Batgirl. I knew it was going to be awesome going into it because of the team, but just seeing it, even just still was just that level beyond how awesome I thought it was going to be. I am so pumped about this story, where it's going, what the future holds, everything. And it's not just, it's not just the mask, it's the person behind the mask that just, it really has me into this title.
Gail Simone's writing of Barbara is like eating Pringles. Once you pop, you just can't stop. I'm realizing I should have said that out loud before saying it on the air. But taking the joking out of it, Gail has shown us that it doesn't matter if Barbara's in the chair or not. She remains a strong woman who has and continues to overcome all that life throws at her. She earns respect not by being perfect, but by dusting herself off, owning up to her mistakes, and stepping up her game. You can connect with her humanity. I love her interactions with Bruce and how a nod from him means so much. The scene with her in the hospital bed in issue 6 where she assumed Bruce would tell her she should never have been Batgirl. Emotionally stirring. I love that he just held her hand. It's a side of Bruce that writers know just when to use. I think it's more meaningful because of how hard-edged life has made him. I also love the nod from him that she was always meant to be Batgirl. I would add to that and say that as Oracle, she was always Batgirl as well. And let me clarify that. I mean that you bring us Barbara Gordon, it's going to feel like her no matter the identity because of the humanity that I previously mentioned. So, Oracle should have, Batgirl should have always been Oracle. I think those are all identities that are unique to Barbara Gordon because of who she is and how she's written. I love the roommate. Gretel, that 338 reveal was awesome, and I felt like a dunce. Jim Gordon and her mom, I can't wait to see what twists Mom is going to be bringing. Will Mom find out the truth? How will Jim Gordon feel about her being back? What are the secrets behind her disappearance? This writer remains one of my favorite, and actually is my favorite, because of consistent quality titles like this. She's somebody, I'm picking up this Millhouse thing. It's like anything I see her name on. She's on this Womanology book that's coming out. It's one of those... I'm trying to remember the name of them. It's where you can Kickstarter, these Kickstarter campaigns. I've been paying attention to a lot of these. It's a cool new way of getting comic book concepts and actually DVDs, videos, everything, games even now, published that are hard to get backing for. It's giving fans a chance to get behind projects and get them actually published. And she's on that Womanology book. I follow anything she does because I know it's going to be unique and deliver. So I think when somebody graduates to that point where you kind of follow their work anywhere they go, it's something really cool. So I don't know. I just wanted to shout all that out. I think this is just a terrific title. I was a little worried when I heard Barbara was coming out of the chair because I'm with you. I love Oracle. But the first issue in on this one, I'm like, what was I even worried about? I do think when you find out, though, that she's going to be writing it and she's the one that's been writing the character that you loved before, I think you kind of get... I wasn't... when I say worried, that was like a smidge.
Yeah.
I mean, it's kind of like I knew that she gets the character and it's going to be good. So, that was... This was one of the relaunches I was probably least worried about.
Yeah, well, it's not worried. It was more of like a wondering what's going to happen here. Mm-hmm. I didn't know where this was going to go. I didn't know how this was going to play out and how we were going to find out she walked and how was it going to affect her. There was a lot of questions. I didn't know what was going to happen. And, it's... getting the stories and reading what it is, I'm like, yes. I'm sitting there and it's, a top title, top pull book, it's, yeah.
Red Hood and the Outlaws.
Man, my vibe on this one and the flow, I don't know what to say. This is a book. I know. I go through moments when I'm like, I don't know about that. Then I'm like, ooh, that was awesome. And I'm so flip-flopping back and forth on this thing that it is like just, what the heck is going on sometimes? And there's some Jason moments that I absolutely love. There's some we talked about, Starfire, some of the stuff that was like, huh? And then Roy, you get these kind of parts where it's like, what? And it's weird because I can't sit there and say I don't like it. I'm not saying dislike. It's just I don't know what I'm feeling on this. This is kind of has me confusing. And it was funny. I was actually going to start singing the White Rabbit song because it has that, kind of that groovy tripping going through time, and but I knew that I just really butchered that, and that was a very instrumental song that you really need that sound to get the groove going, so it's but I know there's a lot of confusion in my head when I think about and I talk about this title, and it's weird. I have a hard time explaining myself on it.
I love you sitting there saying I needed the background music, as opposed to the other ones you sing flawlessly a cappella.
There you go. I have standards.
I've got to applaud your bravery, because I know I have no singing voice, and you constantly amaze me with the stuff that I would be way worse. So anything I throw on you, double on me. This team has me fooled, and had me fooled. There's more to them than meets the eye, and it wasn't meant as a bad Transformers reference. I was hoping there was more to this book than just cheesecake, and there is. I'm with you. Like, the journey's been an interesting one with this title, but I'm starting to really enjoy the fact that we're realizing Corey remembers a lot more than she lets on.
Yeah.
This is also shown beautifully when Roy saves her at the beginning of issue 5. She remembers his full name, but also notes his kind heart. Those aren't things like from somebody who's flighty. There was genuine emotion there from her. She goes out of her way to distinguish what this world who mistrusts metas has done to her. And we've seen that that's what this world's all about. Things have changed in the overall thematic. This book is clearly about misfits who have been outcast and are finding their way to something more together. In many ways, I hope this book turns out to be redemption for Roy especially. Instead of completely wiping the slate clean for him, which I'm glad they didn't do. I know that Leon doesn't exist, but he still has to face his demons and find his way past his mistakes. I know Kenneth Roquefort's art, and I apologize for any name butchery, from Top Cow. He does a good job here. I really like this book. It's a pretty book. I'm enjoying the visual style. Jason's past is fleshed out as the time away from Batman is given new importance here, and it's a good use of what happened to him. I'm glad that there seems to be some good use of the balance between both sides of the law that he's played. I don't get this idea that he's a hero now all of a sudden. I don't get the idea that he's this major villain either. It's a gray area. This book has surprised me. It's become more of an enjoyable title for me that grows on me each issue. I'm with you. I'm still in kind of a weird place with it. I'm not looking to drop it, but it's kind of I don't know how to feel about it from time to time. I think what's essential for the writer is that he's kept me hooked enough that I'm coming back each issue. But you're right, it's an unusual title to talk about because I'm in a weird place with it. So it has had me fooled because I felt one way early on. Now I'm in a different place. I'm glad that he's showing me that there's more layers, and I feel that over time, we're meant to get to know the characters, and we're seeing what he's really trying to do here with them. And I do feel what I'm really connecting with is these are misfits who, through their various life experiences, have found some camaraderie together because they're all in that place. Now, Corey doesn't have powers right now, right? Is that what happened to her? Did I catch that?
No, she's getting them back.
When did we see that?
I thought by the end of the issue, she started getting her powers back. And it was because the reason she's getting her powers back is because of all the freaky stuff the freaky experimenting they did on her. That was different than her other people. If she had just been a normal Tamararian, she would not have her powers.
Okay. Yeah, because that wasn't clear if she was getting power back or not. Okay. Yeah, I'm looking back at the issue. You're right. That's exactly what's happening. I don't know. It's an interesting book. I'm in a weird place with it, and it's not what I'm looking to drop. I think that's a key. But I'm in a weird place.
Well, the fact that I just pulled that knowledge out of my head
says a lot.
Says a lot that I am, that I'm reading it and I'm studying it and I'm learning it, but it's an experience. It's a journey for me that I'm, trying to understand.
And the fact that I care about the relationships and that I care enough to ask those questions says a lot too. So it's an interesting title though. I'm in a very different. I don't think I'm in that place with any other title. It's an interesting place to be in. Next book, Jim.
Nightwing. If it wasn't for Batgirl, this would be my favorite non-Batman focused Bat book. Heck, if I sat down and thought about it, this book probably beats out at least one of the Batman titles. Uh-huh. This book has a really really strong. I got a strong vibe towards it. My history isn't as rich with Dick Grayson, but my connection to the character is strong, and I feel like this person we're reading right now is the same person we saw in the pre-reboot universe, and that's something I was really glad to see.
It's funny. Well, let me go ahead with my line. Nightwing is the ultimate big brother or best friend that we all want to have. Kyle Higgins gets it. My favorite Dick Grayson runs have featured this. Why is the Marv Wolfman and George Perez run of Teen Titans loved so much? They got it. Dick Grayson needs to be likable. He's the guy we all look up to and believe he could be our best friend ever. He's the ultimate partner. If I'm going into a fight, out of anybody in the DC Universe, I think I'm choosing Dick Grayson. You always knew Robin would be there for Batman. Dick is always there for his friends. They are his family. Eddie Barrows is the perfect artist for this series. Having a traveling circus opens up so many storytelling options. New Orleans in issue 5, and bringing a magic element feels just as at home for Nightwing as an assassin out to kill Dick Grayson at the start of the series. As a Titan, Robin, Nightwing, and as Batman, Dick Grayson's seen it all. I love the new costume, and seeing him take off out of the rail car as Nightwing was just plain cool. I don't know if Trigon happened to him, but that sequence with the demon sure felt right. And I love that his commentary on it, this is out of my wheelhouse, but you're Nightwing, you can do it. The conversation with Jimmy about the past and sometimes it being better to leave the past behind you is interesting, especially with where the story's going. I think that is often true, but if you run too far from the past, it's always going to come back to bite you. Dick Grayson's the type of guy to eventually want to come back and face it. My other choice is, and the other choice of the line I want to do was, why, Raya, why? What is her relationship with Raymond? I know he's the childhood friend that was playing with them in the previous issues. Is he the friend or is he a brother of hers? I don't know what I think they're friends. She's bitter that Dick didn't come back for the funeral. I think she's also bitter that Dick left them all behind. What happens, though? Is she going to be able to reconnect with him enough to make the right choice? I care. This is a top shelf title. The reason why before, when I was going through the Batman books, I was saying if I had to go to 2 different Bruce titles, and I was making those distinctions on purpose, I would really have a tough time right now dropping Nightwing. As much as I'm a fan of Bruce Wayne, I'm just as big a fan of Dick Grayson. So I think, if I had to go down to, for example, 5 titles, there's no way this title isn't going to be in that mix. And that means having only one Bruce book, Nightwing's going to be in there. Batgirl's going to be in there. There's characters in the Bat family that I've got to read every month. And I will say right now, 3 books that for sure would be in my list, for sure, would be Batman, Nightwing, and Batgirl. I would have a very tough time letting go of Batman and Robin, but if I need to get some of my favorite characters in there, that's going to happen. And Aquaman would be in there as well. So I can definitely say those would be, if I had to go to 5, those would be my 4 titles out of my top 5. I would have to leave one wild card slot, and oh my gosh, would I have a tough time filling that, because there's a whole bunch of books that I just mentioned, but I probably would leave that for a more unusual title like a Captain Atom or an Animal Man or something like that, just to have something with a weird flavor in there. You know what I mean? Yep. The top quality title with these unusual underground characters that are a little bit smaller, that I just think are really just showing some super creativity right now. So I know for sure that those titles, though, I have no hesitation saying that would be my 4 books out of the batch. So it's funny. We get a lot of criticism for always being positive, but I think sometimes that makes it harder making those choices. But those would be the books right now. And notice, I look at the titles I left out of that list. Yeah, I know. But I'm comfortable. I'm comfortable with those 4 that I said, because those are books I know I could not part with, and I'd be crying to not read the rest. That's where, though, I think you and I would be having big conversations on how to maximize our reading. Yeah.
Oh, we would definitely go, okay, you're getting these titles, I'm getting these. We'll get the books, swap. It definitely would be going that route.
And I'd be going to the library a lot and asking them to buy titles and stuff like that. I'm talking about budget-wise. It needed that. And I do encourage people to do that. We all have budgets that we've got to maintain. And, you remember your public libraries. They need more support. And if you're sitting there saying, wow, I'm only able to read this many titles, but I want to read more books, go to your library and request titles. Request that they get trades of titles. These books are all being released in hardcovers and things like that. They have a certain amount of budget for requests. And if you don't request them, they won't be there. So, do please support your local libraries. That's good for comics, too, because that's purchases towards comics. That helps the comic companies. I know it's somehow dirty to, admit that these are businesses, but they are. And, comic numbers now are disgusting, I think. I think for the quality of the books that are being published right now, I think the numbers are just piss poor. And I would really like to see more support of the fact that these are really great books and that libraries should have them and they should be accessible to people, and people are missing out on a great opportunity for some great entertainment. So, please, if you're finding your budget not hitting some books that you want, tell your library. That's helping the comic business because they want to know what books to publish. They really do. And they want to know what books people are going to pick up. Also use interlibrary loan. I've found a lot of success finding books that maybe my local library doesn't have through interlibrary loan. It does let those libraries know to purchase more. Again, helping comics. I just think that stuff's great. I know it's a little sidebar, but we got on this tangent of talking about the fact, if we had to cut down. And I think when we're looking at 52 titles that we're both enjoying, there is a certain hierarchy, and I think the quality of the new 52, which is something we're going to talk about a lot more in next episode as we do a summary of this, I think has been really great, and the diversity of the titles being available. I think there is something for everyone in this lineup. So, Jim, let's talk about our last book for the 26th.
Catwoman. Yeah, it's funny. This title is actually fighting with Batwing for the bronze medal of my non-Batman Bat titles. Yeah. Now, to make a statement like that, people might think I'm not enjoying the book, but nothing could be really further from the truth. It's going up against some stiff competition. And this Catwoman, I don't have a previous history with reading a Catwoman solo series. So this, for me, is my opening series into Catwoman. I know who she is. I'm comfortable with the character and the whatnot behind her, but I've never actually sat down and read a monthly on her. And this book has me hungry to read the past and to go get the past series and pick up the different stuff that I missed. I think, it's a powerful statement for a current book to say that it's got me wanting to read more, especially because what I want to pick up is a completely different universe.
I am hoping people, and this is my line, I am hoping people who dismissed this book's initial issue gave it a shot beyond, because this is turning into a really good Catwoman. I think we've been used to a straight-up hero version of Catwoman from recent years, and this gives us a better glimpse into her duality. It reminds us that she comes from a hard life on the streets, and being a cat burglar is what she knows best. She does care about those around her, but loss has made her put up a shell filled with danger and excitement. Yet those emotions do exist, and we see it when she, for example, when she takes on the Meta who threw her into the sky. I mean, she's often a victim of being in the wrong place at the wrong time, where her reputation hurts her. There's a great balance of humor and action and dark emotion. All in all, this is really a fun offering that shows Judd Winnick really understands Selina. Yes, she has sexiness, but there's so much more to her. And I really do hope, it's one of those things where, why do I get so passionate against the hatred out there? You never see people come back and say 2 issues later after they bashed a title, hey, that title changed for me and I really liked it. Nobody ever goes back and corrects things. You know what I'm saying? I'm not saying that everyone who didn't like the first issue would get that same place that I did. I felt a little uncomfortable with the first issue as well with what happened in there. I get that. But, if you read the rest of the book, there's so much more to this book than that. And nobody ever comes back and corrects any of that. That's my big problem. That's why, and I apologized again to Jamie because it kind of kicked off, and Jamie knows me well. Jamie and I have rapped many times at conventions. I think Jamie by now gets that I have a ton of respect for him, and I respect his opinions, whether we agree on everything or not. But I just want to, for the listening audience, because, I put the comments out here publicly, that's where my hate for the hate comes from. I don't see enough of the balance of people coming back and high-fiving, where a book goes direction-wise if it changes. I can't believe that everybody who bashed that didn't find later this book to be satisfying. I just think because the book really did show a lot more depth than that initial issue showed, and I'm really bothered by that kind of stuff where, we don't see enough of that. Catwoman's a great example of that. Yeah. I don't know if you're in the same place I am, but I really felt the uproar should have been balanced out by some people coming back and, high-fiving later offerings from this title.
Yeah, I wasn't as uncomfortable with it as you were. Those first couple issues, because again, I'm, when I was reading it, it made sense. All this stuff, what she was going through, what was happening, especially like second and third read-throughs when I started putting together a little bit more behind the psychology behind her, behind that scene. So it wasn't just about, gratification. It was about the personal turmoil she was going through, the personal emotions that were risen, that got brought back up to the surface. So it's, yeah.
And I agree with you. But, I mean, it was one of those things for me, I understood the discomfort. I think there comes a point, though, where, like, there's a line. And I think there's a difference between, not giving something a shot, going overboard. If you're going to put those kind of venomous comments out there, balance it out somewhere, and it just never happens. I think some people are like Jamie's. Let me use Jamie's as an example. A lot of balance in what he was saying. You know what I mean? He was mentioning that he's picking this thing up, but this is how he views it, and he's trying to show how he saw the other side of it, which was very honest commentary. But we've also heard Jamie just as many times on our show, and actually we've got another voicemail coming up with him where he's ranting and raving about books that he's really digging across the board. That's what I mean. It's okay to feel one way, but show some balance in the other direction. That's what I mean whenever I say on this show that I think people have forgotten how to be fans. I think there's people who've got a good balance of being able to say I don't like something and I do. But I find very few people out there that actually at any point in time show I think people are afraid to.
Hey, Sean?
Yeah.
Don't hate the player, hate the game.
Great Booker T reference. On that note, Jim, we will be finishing up the second part of this next week. So Jim and I did a long talk about it and talked about the notes that we had, and we just had a feeling that there was no way we could do this in one episode. And it actually worked out that way. So we figured rather than try to stop at some awkward point, we would make a nice middle point right after the Bat books. And we actually went off of the solicits that were on Newsarama, and figuring that gave us a nice order to go in because books were grouped together by natural lines. And it was funny how it worked out. The 26th title that they had there was actually Catwoman, which ended the Batman run. And then we can go on next week to things like Green Lantern and the rest of the DCU books. So it's kind of an interesting way to do it. But we'll finish up next week, and in 2 episodes, we'll have done this really long exploration of DCU. But to me, if we just done the lines, I think something would have been lost. This is a great culminating, I think, exploration of where these titles are at. And I think might be helpful for some people who are looking to make hardcover purchases or trade paperback purchases down the road, because these books are being collected. So I think people are probably going to be looking to say, okay, my budget only handled this, but I have a certain amount of money for trades. What do I want to read out of that batch? And I'm hoping for people that they're able to distinguish from our comments which books are right for them and which ones aren't. Because just because you and I are liking it doesn't mean that it's for everybody. And I think people hopefully are being able to make a distinction between some of our comments here. And that really is my hope from this, is to point people at material that's right for them.
You won't get away from me this time, Buster.
Hello, Sean and Jim. This is Matt_Magis from Twitter again. Sorry about being so late in answering you back, but I've had a hectic week. You asked me which of the 6 titles that are coming out that I'm going to be picking up to replace those that we are sadly losing. Earth 2 is a definite. James Robinson, pretty much anything he's on, I'm down for, and him writing the JSA. He has a love for those Golden Age characters that I just adore. World's Finest also, because it's going to be Huntress and PG. That is so awesome. When I first saw the title, I thought, oh, great, another Batman, Superman team up. Because, that was always what World's Finest, well, almost always what World's Finest was. Either that or just, the normal team up books. But enjoying that. Batman Inc., obviously, after reading Leviathan Strikes, I can't wait to see what Grant does with that. And the Ravagers, of course, because I am fond of the Wilsons and the Titans. And there's one non-DC book that I'm picking up with the with the cancellation of these titles that I absolutely have to mention, because it's Garth Ennis writing The Shadow, and that can't be anything but fantastic. Now, I'm not so into the Dial H thing. That's not really... I picked up a couple of issues of Dial H for Hero when I was a bit younger, and I never really got into it. I might try the first issue out just to see if I'm okay with it. Yeah. Let's see. I made notes here. I'm really hoping that they can get to the point where they can sustain 52 titles ongoing, because that would be great, especially, if they're all titles I'm really digging, you know what I mean? But we'll see about that. Me, I'm all digital because I'm a truck driver, and it's sort of hard to maintain a pull list when you're not home for 3 months at a time or more. So I've decided to go all digital and occasional trades. But that's the way I'm going for things. Anyway, thank you guys, and I will talk to you at some other time when I have other stuff to rant about. All right, bye.
Thanks for the follow-up, and don't ever hesitate to shout out another title from another company like The Shadow, because a lot of times comments like that, Jim and I all week long are working on this program, and a lot of times those comments do help us, whether it's on our forum, Facebook, on here. I'm not just a DC fanboy. I love comics in general, and that's why when people complain about their budgets and pull lists and the fact that there's comics are just out to make money, a lot of times those frustrations come from the fact that we all have limited budgets and time. So I do understand that. It's, to me though, it's the comments like this where it's like, that's why I wanted the follow-up, because there is a balance on the other side. Yes, you're dropping titles that you didn't care for, which I respect. I love that you came back with, though, I'm excited about Earth 2. I'm excited about World's Finest because I didn't see what they were doing coming, and I'm with you on that. Amen. I like that it's Power Girl and Huntress. It feels fresh. It feels different. That's a good way to do it. This Dial H thing, I'll agree with him on the Dial H. I'm not quite sure on that. I want to read it and see. I'm excited for it because it's something different, but I'll see how I feel about it. This one's totally new for me. I read Hero by Will Pfeiffer, and I really liked that, but I don't know if this is going to go the same route of that or if it's going to go back, even further. So I don't know. I'm going to be curious to see where that goes, but I'm giving it a shot.
Yeah.
I think it's going to be – we're going to talk about each of those titles as they're released because I think there's a lot to talk about there. Batman Inc., it's dumb. I'm a Batman guy. And if you give me good Batman – I'm there. So that's kind of a no-brainer for me. The Shadow one that he mentioned, though, I know you're a Garth Ennis fan from The Boys. Did you know that Shadow was coming out by Garth Ennis?
I did not know that was coming out. So I'm going to probably look at, go to my order and maybe do a little adjustments to it.
Yeah, because I know you're a Garth Ennis fan from it.
Yeah. So
I saw that, too, and that's one that I'm interested in just because I like Garth Ennis. I like The Shadow.
Yeah. Well, it's funny. I say, I like The Shadow, but I really don't know The Shadow that well.
Have you heard any of the old radio serials?
No, I haven't.
See, those are really good.
Yeah.
I'm a big fan of that kind of stuff. And, I don't know, old radio serials for me, I think it's one of the reasons why I like podcasting. It was kind of fun with radio serials and stories. So I like being a part of this medium because I grew up with stuff like that, on cassette tape. I used to get it from the library. Speaking of the library, I used to get them on cassette tape. We had a library that was from right by my mom's house, and I'd walk up there. I'd grab those, bring them home. I heard everything from The Shadow to Lord of the Rings to, all kinds of stuff that were in, The Shadow was a radio show. But like Lord of the Rings they were taken from cast productions of them. So I recommend nowadays, go to the library and get a lot of this stuff. We're all on limited budgets and things. There's a lot at the library, and it's worth supporting your local library because that does support these companies. And our local libraries really need us, and it's a great way for you to get stuff for free, but also to help them with numbers coming through and things like that. So I don't know. I just that kind of stuff is great. But The Shadow I'm into because I like the character mainly from radio serials. I saw do you see the Alec Baldwin movie?
Yeah, see that's one of my main exposures to it, and I thought that was kind of neat, and I liked the concept behind it, but I never really got too passionate involved with it.
The radio serials are even better. Like, I don't know, there's something to that whole delivery. Garth Ennis seems like a guy to me that would get the right kind of balance of modernizing it while at the same time sticking to what made the concept cool to begin with. Yeah. So, yeah, I'm on board because of that. You know, a little side note, I want to shout out something that I'm enjoying. I'm reading Kevin Smith's Bionic Man. Are you reading that book?
No, I'm not.
Were you into the $6 Million Man at all?
Yes, I was. And I don't know, when I saw it coming out, I just didn't go to it because my pull list is pretty full right now. I didn't have room to drop anything to pick it up, so
I'm picking that up and I'm really digging it. So it's kind of a weird thing to throw out there, but I just I don't know. I was a geek of $6 Million Man as a kid. Like, you know, I used to play with friends and do the stupid slow motion run and stuff like that too. You know, I was faster because I was running in slow motion, right? I mean, but we all, you know, anybody who's a fan of that show did that. So I don't know. I was kind of into this whole thing being released, and I'm you know, as a fan growing up with it, I don't know how it is for new readers who maybe never experienced it before, but as a fan growing up with it, I'm really digging the book. So I just because he threw out The Shadow, I'm like, it's a good time for me to throw out another book that I'm digging. I do pick up stuff outside of DC, and that was one of them that I really like. I also want to shout out some love again for Morning Glories by Nick Spencer. That's a book that I'm just continuing to follow and love. And Rachel Rising by Terry Moore. I almost said Tony Moore. Tony Moore's the artist on was the artist on Walking Dead, but initially. So I mean, I don't know. I'm loving the heck out of those books. So I just want to shout them out.
The non-DC stuff, a lot of times I will go to trade on them. Mm-hmm. You know, just because it's easier for me reading just to get them bundled together, and I'll wait and see what people say, and if I'm hearing good stuff about it, I'll go get the trade on it.
I am so gun shy on trades anymore, and I'll tell you why. It's when I like something, I tend to stick to monthlies now, you know, or digital, and it's even digital. I'm gun shy. I don't know like what companies, you know, value. I would really love if like companies on their website would say, "Here's the best way to support our books," and just be blunt with it. Well, no, because I feel like if I like something, I want my numbers to count, if that makes sense. Which is really, I know I'm just one person, but I've got this weird mentality like I'm casting my vote, like I'm in a presidential election or something when I pick up a comic. So I really feel this like need, which is funny because I don't really follow numbers. Like I respect the people that do and that are very into it, so I'm not knocking that. I don't do that, but yet I want my number to count, which is it seems like a bizarre contradiction.
Yes.
I don't know. He got me on this. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Well, it's a bizarre contradiction, which is kind of this show. Yeah.
I'm a walking bizarre contradiction, so yeah.
Hey, Sean and Jen, this is Jamie Dunst, JD74 on the boards, and I wanted to talk about Green Lantern number 6. I have to start off with what I didn't like. I opened the book after seeing the really cool cover. I opened the page, and I'm looking at the art, and Hal Jordan looks like an adult Ash Ketchum from Pokemon. And I looked back on the cover, and I realized that it wasn't the regular artist, but it was Mike Choi. Now, I'm not really sure what he's done in the past, but the only way I can describe the art was if I could paraphrase the second Doctor Who, it would go something like this. Oh, you redecorated the interior art. Don't like it. The art didn't do it for me, but the story was really good, and that overall kept me interested in what was going on. I was just really distracted by the artwork. Sinestro, on the other hand, didn't look so bad, but overall, not so much. The art was okay. Story-wise, it was great, and I was really interested in the vision that Sinestro saw of maybe potential future events, like him being an Indigo tribe and the fall of Hal Jordan and stuff like that. It was really cool. Really looking forward to future issues of Green Lantern because I just want to know what the Indigo tribe is all about. And it looks like this is where it's going. And but on another level, I really liked the beginning of this story where you see Hal enjoying himself without the ring. You know, he's really given a go with Carol at a relationship, but he seems like he doesn't need the ring anymore at that point. And it was really cool to see. And I wonder how long it took him how long that they were at, going between this issue and last issue. Like, I wonder how much time had lapsed since since that issue. Was it a week? Was it a month? I would be interested in knowing that. A little cute thing I remember was you saw Hal thinking back to, I guess, the Carol's bathroom, and you see a green toothbrush and a pink toothbrush, and I thought that was kind of neat. Other than that, it was a really good book. Not a big fan of the art, but overall really cool. I also want to talk about Batgirl number 6. Wow, that was a nice ending to an overall story arc. I thought Bruce telling Barbara that she was made to be Batgirl was the line of the month. I thought it was really, really cool. I liked how Barbara decided that she's going to take down the villain with kindness. It was really something that was within Barbara's character to do. And Barbara's mom is still a mystery to me, but I'm really looking forward to, we getting more reveals about her. And who wouldn't want someone to bake you that many pastries? That was that was really interesting. That was kind of cool. It was kind of a funny moment. I'm looking forward to the next issue. It looks like we may get some more information about some unseen told stuff about the Joker, which would be cool. And that book has been top notch for me. So that's what I did. I love the show as always, and I'll talk to you soon. Bye.
It's interesting. I did notice the art on that issue. I think for me, it didn't bother me as much. It did surprise me. Now, let me tell you why. One of the things I've noticed with DC, especially since the reboot, and even a little bit before that, usually when they've done fill-in art, they've tried to get artists who are pretty close to the same style as the regular art team to keep that kind of flow. That being said, this one, did you read any of those Batman hardcovers that came out? I think it was Child of Dreams was one of them. I'm trying to blow this off the top of my head. There were a couple of them that were in the anime manga style. I don't know what the right terminology is for it, but I'm into that kind of material.
I've read that style before, but I don't know what exactly you're talking about.
But I mean, that's when I open it up, clearly from the first page, that was what struck me, that's what it is. So which is what he's pointing out with the Ash. I didn't connect him to Ash Ketchum. I didn't get that vibe, but I get what he's saying. It's got more of an anime manga feel to it than what we're used to on the book. So that was something I noticed too. That didn't bother me, though, because I think I'm comfortable with that style and I'm used to that style. But I will agree with him. It's kind of a difference that I'm not used to in the current DC. They seem to try and get a little bit closer with the fill-ins. But was that something that struck you?
I screamed, "This is an abomination," and threw it across the room. Yeah. I saw it. I noticed it. It's a different art, style. And like him, I also, what? Then I looked, I'm like, oh, okay,
yeah.
Different person. So I didn't notice that it was going to be a different person going into it, but it didn't really, it didn't throw me off the story. It didn't throw me off of the enjoyment. And it could be because it was a strong story. It was something really neat, but it also could just be, I was okay with that style because I like that style of art. So, I didn't see it as an issue.
I thought the artist, I agree with him, the characters did look different than I'm used to, so I've got to totally back him up on that. But I do think the artist did a good job of helping to tell the story. Because I agree with his comments that the story was really good in that issue.
Yeah.
And I think some of that has to be attributed to the artist who told the story as well. So I think there's a mixture there. It's interesting. It's because he's right. I noticed it too. So I'm totally with it. When he said it, I'm like, oh yeah, I get what he's saying. Yeah, I noticed that too. It was one of those issues that kind of struck me. And I did notice, mainly because they usually have been a little closer in choosing. So I don't know what I see. The funny part was I wasn't thinking don't use this artist again. And I'm not necessarily saying that's what he's saying either. But it wasn't, I didn't have a strong response to it. And Jamie had a really nice balance there of talking about, because it was a great issue, especially at the end where Sinestro's basically telling Hal, you have no choice, which Hal didn't know that he was signing up for.
Yeah.
Jamie, oh, go ahead. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I was going to say I took it that the Hal and Carol, that it was relatively near to the end of the last issue, because I took it that Hal really was comfortable with his new life very quickly and almost immediately, and I got it from the fact that when he had one power from one last incarnation, one last creation, he did create the image of Carol, and he was like, this is it. If I'm going down, this is going to be the last thing I'm going to see. So I took it that he was already comfortable with the role of not being a Lantern, because he knew he had so much more in his life than just the ring.
Well, I look at it as the same comparison of retiring from a job.
Yeah.
You know, you spend so much time doing that job, it becomes so much a part of your life, but there's more to you than just that job. You know, it's the job is the people you surrounded yourself with, the comrades, the friends, things like that. And there's a lot of that in the Green Lantern Corps for Hal. And not to mention the superhero family that he has in the Justice League and things like that. But this also was finally his chance to retire and to see what retirement could bring. Things that he always wanted in his life that he has never let himself experience, because it's always gone horribly wrong when he's tried to bring it into his job. So this is a chance to say, I've done this for years. Now's my chance to retire. I like that because it felt very natural and real to me. I'm glad he brought that up, because I thought that was a spot-on analysis of what I thought was great about the issue. That was something that really struck me as well. I think this story with Hal and Sinestro is very cool. And, you know, is Hal going to eventually see the need to become a Lantern again? I don't know. And how is Carol going to react to that, if he does? Or is he going to finally get some peaceful time with Carol alone? I don't know. I don't know what's going to happen there. That's interesting. I'm curious about it. The story's been gripping.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can't wait. Actually, we'll be talking about that a lot more next week as part of because that's part of the last 26 titles that we have to go over next week. I like his comments about Batgirl pretty much so echoed a lot of what we were noticing with the book too. Yeah, so cool. Thanks for calling in again, Jamie.
Oh, no, you don't!
Once again, sponsoring us this episode is DCBService.com and InStockTrades.com. Over at DCBService.com, the Get Hero hardcover, regularly $24.99, 45% off, only $13.74. Be sure to check out DCBService.com for all of your pre-orders. Remember, they are a Comixology digital partner. If you are buying your Comixology purchases through them, it doesn't cost you anything more, but it gives you 5% off your DCB Service order. I also want to shout out that they've got 75% off on that shadow book that was mentioned on the episode. Buy all 4 regular covers for $3.99. So if you're into getting all the covers, there's a good way to get those regular covers at 75% off. $3.99, it's like a cover price of a regular book for all 4 covers if you like to collect those. So definitely check out DCBService.com for that pre-order. Over at InStockTrades.com, remember they have Knightfall Part 1 and Knightfall Part 3, both at $11.99. That's 40% off each. And then Knightfall Part 2 is $10.79 at 40% off each. That'll be episode 300, 301, and 302 for us as we celebrate our 6-year anniversary and 300 episodes of Raging Bullets. It's a big storyline that we've always wanted to do, and we're doing it in 3s. So it kind of matches. That's why I actually chose that one. I'm like, wow, it's 3 trades. It kind of fits. And it'll probably be 300 hours. So I want to thank DCB Service and InStockTrades.com for continuing to support the show. Speaking of that 300th episode, we have a 300th episode 6-year anniversary contest. We've already gotten a couple entries for it. We aired one last week. We actually got a logo that was in that's cool. I'm actually going to use it for our 300th episode. Somebody made it up, and it would fit our normal where I'd put our episode banner. So I'm going to end up using that one. So I wanted to shout that out that I did get that, and that's going to be a part of the show. In March, we are celebrating 6 years of the podcast and our 300th episode. We have partnered with DiscountPartySupplies.com. That's www.discountpartysupplies.com to offer a special celebration package. To enter, 300 shows in 6 years is a big happening for us. We want you to show your creativity and, of course, your sense of humor. Choose any of the themes of 300, 6 years, anniversary. You can draw, write, record, whatever you want to do. What your favorite hero or villain would do to celebrate or even ruin our anniversary. A parody of the show's episodes, themes, or topics. This can include, but is not limited to, making your own spoiler warning, show intro, music, whatever. feel free to create bullets for in between the show segments. As you know, I like having fun airing those. And so if you've got creative ideas on ones you're like, geez, it'd be fun to use these kind of things for your bullets, please feel free to show your creativity with that. Create an article or review of a favorite book or topic you want to shout out that we may have covered, or that you wish we had, or well down the road. So feel free to go ahead and add those. We'll put those up on the website. Any other creative way that you want to celebrate or have fun with the upcoming anniversary. We purposely are leaving this open-ended so anyone can enter. I want this to be like kind of a community thing. I consider the show, you guys are all our friends, and I want you to be able to be a part of this and kind of make your mark. So anything you create will be a part of that episode or our website or whatever. So that way, you'll have yourself like stamped in as a part of it. So please feel free to enter any way that you see fit. If you have any questions, ragingbullets@gmail.com is the address to reach us at. Feel free to send me an email, and I'll be happy to answer anything that you have in mind. I'm very open-minded, though. Note, you can enter as many times as you want before the end of February. We're going to randomly pick the prizes, the winners from the available entries. So the more you enter, the more chances you've got of winning. And it really is to make this whole thing fun and exciting. And like I said, feel free to parody us. There's a lot to laugh at. We laugh at ourselves during the show and off the show as well. First prize will be a trade paperback of the winner's choosing from InStockTrades.com and a Green Lantern party package from DiscountPartySupplies.com. This package includes everything from tablecloths to balloons to glow-in-the-dark rings to stickers, streamers, everything you can imagine that you would need for a party they've got here. Candles and even cutlery. It's really cool stuff. Second and third prize is going to be a choice from our listener and show donated comic and trade prize bag. So I'll send you a list of the things that we have, and you can pick your favorites. Entries are due by the last day of February in any time zone and should be emailed to ragingbullets@gmail.com with the heading of 300th Contest. Recorded entries may be sent in via our show voicemail line or emailed to me. Remember, the show voicemail line is 1-440-388-4434 or Dr. Norge on Skype. If you're doing a contest voicemail, please tell us at the start that it's for the contest. That way I know to set that aside separately as an entry. And Jim, next week we are going to continue looking at the New 52 in one line only. This will be our second part, and we're actually going to wrap it up with that. 26 more books that we are going to cover, and that'll be our concluding statement on this whole relaunch. We'll also do like a summary of how we felt, what was successful about the relaunch, what we hoped the relaunch would be, and what we hope they do in the future with this. That's kind of the big thing I think all on the mind of all of us as fans is, what do we want now? Where do we want them to go? So I think that'd be kind of a fun commentary as well. We welcome your voicemails or comments for that episode, so please feel free to send them in. And we will see you all next week.
Bye.
Flying through space and time, 1,000 different lifetimes. Faded for love and flaws and incredibly clear sightlines. Swinging your mace around, such a practical outlook. Helping the JSA and occasionally supporting your own book. Hawkman, Hawkman, eagle eyes can't see. Hawkman, your plan and what you do to me. Villains are closing in, be they Thanin Guard or Egyptian. Working so hard to thwart you and Hawkgirl's mission. The odds are not on your side, and danger seems to stack up. Things would be so much easier